Welcome to Magical Memories Unlocked, your guide to events that truly rock. From tips on planning and entertainment to will help you make your dream event come true. Now without delay, let's dive into your guide to event success today.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to another Magical Memories Unlocked, your guide to event success. We have another entertainer deep dive today, and this week I have LB with me. This is Lauren Beth Stein. She goes by LB, and she's been with us for a long time. She's worked with us in a lot of different capacities. She is definitely a jack of all, I don't know how to say that, jack of all trades, but a female version of it. She knows a lot of different versions. So, I mean, she's a circus performer, a character performer, does fire, has gotten into bubbles and Simon Says, and I'm probably missing a half a dozen other things, but she is a girl that can do amazing different things in a really skillful way. But I'm talking a lot. So LB, I'd love for you to introduce yourself to everybody about who you are, what you do, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve, for having me and Magical Memories Entertainment, for including me in your roster of amazing things you offer. So I'm LB. It's Lauren Beth Stein, but nobody calls me Lauren. Call me LB. If you say Lauren in a crowd, I'm not going to turn around, and I'm so sorry. I want to acknowledge you. I go by Lady Blaze. That's my performer name for the last well over a decade. I've been performing for over 20 years. I originally started with giant puppets and spinning things as a teenager, and it's just grown from there. So of the things I offer, I'm an insured and licensed professional fire performer for over 20 years with 22 performance-ready fire arts and acts that I can offer. I am a stilt walker with a plethora of different costumes, and I just love making costumes and creating. I roller skate, and I do all sorts of roller skating events. I love roller skating parades, but roller skating really anywhere, it just really makes me happy. I do bubble shows, bubble events. I am a mime. And I also do Super Simon Says events, which I love. Magical Memories Entertainment has given me an opportunity to do more of those, some of my favorite things to do. I also do a lot of character acting. I do various characters. I work with a couple of jobs that I am not allowed to disclose because of NDAs, but I am a character, and I sing and I dance and I act, which is super, super fun. There's just so many things that I do. I also am a huge proponent of team empowerment and team building. I've been an educator, an outdoor educator, wilderness teacher, experiential learning for over 20 years. I used to work on challenge courses. I really love doing team building, team empowerment, both with youth, college, corporate events. I love to get in there and help people work together. Like I said, I used to work on challenge courses and things like that. But because of, body limitations and only being able to do so many things at one time, I've kind of honed it back into mostly performing. At this point, I also have a disco ball head that I really adore wearing. I do LEDs when fire isn't available. And I'm always learning new things and trying to try new things. People are like, hey, can you do this? I'm like, yeah, I MC a little bit. I know all the fun dances. And I'm just looking for all the different entertainment. And whenever people come to me with, a different event, a different skill, I try to find the best and most appropriate and like creative, adding the most excitement to their event. So whatever that includes, sometimes it's multiple things, sometimes it's just one thing. Sometimes, like I said, I create different costumes, and I have a plethora to choose from. I do things from backyard parties, weddings, corporate events. I will go to different fairs and festivals. I have gone to schools, to camps. I've been all over the place. I have traveled around. I've done different fundraisers, nonprofits, you name it. I've probably done it. I was in a library last week doing bubbles. So,
Oh,
all over the
amazing.
place.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. That's so interesting. I mean, you do so many different things. Like I said, the jacket of all trades. I don't know how to, whatever. Like I said, Jacqueline
Jill?
of all trades. There you go.
Yeah,
Jacqueline of all
Jacqueline.
trades. There you go.
I like
I'm
it.
gonna go with that.
Yeah, I love it.
But what I'd love to hear, I mean, how did you mentioned getting started, you started with doing giant puppets. I mean, can you kind of talk about how the origin of entertainment, how did you get started with this?
Sure. So when I was 12, my aunt took me to a Renaissance festival and I saw people playing with devil sticks or flower sticks. And
Mm-hmm.
of course, I had to have a pair at 12. And so I played with them and I loved them. And then when I was 16, being the youth that I was, my mom's like, you can't just hang out with your friends all summer long. And she sent me to a program with other teenagers, and none of us wanted to be there because we were teenagers. And I found a hula hoop. And I basically all summer long just hula hooped and kind of just kind of stuck to myself. I've always been like the more avant-garde individual. It has not changed. It was everyone's like, "Oh, you're going to grow out of it." No, I've just taken it and grown with it. And people that knew me when I was younger were like, "I didn't know you do these things." Oh, I've been doing it the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
But so I started hula hooping, and then when I was a teenager, I used to go to something called the Stone Arts Festival in Norwalk, where I grew up in Norwalk, Connecticut, and they would do giant puppets, very similar to like bread and puppet style, so like gorilla puppetry, so like giant puppets that are like on my body, on my back, way up in the air, like there's gonna be knees of feet like here, and the arms are like way up there. I'm only 4'11", and these puppets are going to be like 8 feet, 9 feet in the air. Also, how I kind of started stilt walking, and I would fabricate them with my friends. But even more so, I just loved being in the puppet. And the cool thing about our puppetry as guerrilla puppetry is we would go out into these crowds at these festivals and these
Mm-hmm.
events and be a puppet, and people would be like, "Oh my god, that's so cool. I want to be a puppet." And like our goal was to get people to be like, "You want to be come be a puppet." And we'd bring them back
Mm-hmm.
to the side area where we were all our puppets were loaded up. We had flowers and dragons and birds and giant crazy eyeballs and weird spiked creatures and monsters with big lickable tongues that were like this big, and your hand was in it, and they didn't know. We made all sorts of things, and we had a giant dog dragon that we'd walk on. It was like 4 person. It was made of just fabric. We were like, we have all this leftover fabric. What we do? We just put little strips, and it was like a shaggy dog. And we'd go and we'd invite people to come be puppets. You like it? Come try that. You want to be the puppet I'm wearing? Yeah, totally. The goal was by the end of the day, all the puppets were out in the crowd, and we could see them, and we were just relaxing, having a nice cold beverage on a hot day, just observing people, helping them in, helping them out, and I just loved it. And that was called Waking Dream. And then when I was about early 20s, this is before YouTube, don't do math, don't figure out how old I am, but we saw a video online of a girl with a fire hula hoop, and I hula hooped, and my friend and my boyfriend at the time that I did puppets with, we're like, "Oh, there's this girl online. She has fire on a hula hoop, and she's okay, but you're way better." Flattered. And this is before polypros
That's
existed.
a
Like
good
this is
boyfriend right there. There you
yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, they were like, "You need to do this." And I was like, "Yeah, okay." I was a Girl Scout for 13 years, love fire, love all the things. I was like, "Yeah, okay, I'll hula hoop fire." We look online. There's only one company at that time making fire gear, and they were out of Canada, and it was expensive, still expensive. But we were like, so they built me a fire hoop. It was not made of the same materials you would use for making fire props now. It was very primitive, but I did it, and I loved it. And then I would go to more events where we would do puppets, and people would be like, "You do fire, come do fire at these things." And so I learned. And then 2007, I actually went to an event called Wildfire, which still runs in Connecticut a couple times a year. Unfortunately, I usually have gigs, so I haven't been able to go as often. They change the dates during the fall, and I have a standing gig now in the Memorial Day weekend. But I went there, and that first year I went, I learned to hula hoop even more. Like that's where I learned to foot hoop and leg hoop better than I was doing. Someone broke it down. "Oh, you have this, but like just do this one little thing a little different." It's like it just clicks, right? It just needs one person. Turn your hand this way, turn your hand that way, grab it this way. I learned to eat fire. I learned to breathe fire. I had already gotten fire fans. And that just I always called it Circus Boot Camp. And that just kind of grew. I was still doing puppets. I was still doing fire. Later, our fire group I was doing a lot more fire. I was stilt walking. One of the other guys one of my besties that started the company was now video DJing. He still does in New York City. He does video DJing. So if you ever see those cool pictures on the walls, like that's what he does. And he was always in the city, and I was booking fire gigs. And then I had broken up with my ex-boyfriend, still friends. He moved up to Vermont and was doing different things. So we all kind of just went our own ways. The puppetry is still in my heart, and building costumes kind of helps me find that place. But from there, I
Mm,
learned to the fire props I do is like fire hula hoop, fire eating, fire breathing, fire fans, poi, rope dart. These are just the ones I feel performance ready. There's a couple other things I do that I'm like, these are fun. I'll do it in the backyard. But, if
mhm,
people are paying me, I want to give them the best show
mhm.
possible. Right. I have fire fingers. I lost track. Fire fingers. I have fire triads. I have a parasol, like an umbrella. I have a
Sure.
dragon staff. I have a heart. I have a star. I have what was the world's first only fire roller skates, custom built for me. Now there's
Mm,
a few people out there that do it, and Connecticut laws make it a little difficult for me to just get out there and fire skate anymore. But
mm,
love that. Had those custom built, both the skates and the adaptions for me.
mm.
I have fire bubbles. I have a fire crown. I have palm torches. I have
Mhm.
a levy wand. I have those devil sticks I was talking about that I absolutely love. I have an orb, which is like
Sure.
it's kind of fun, kind of goes back and forth.
Sure.
Um, I'm sure I'm missing something at this point,
But
but there's just so many things I do, and there's
yeah.
not time to do them all.
Well, you know what? It's I'm glad you listed out all those things because I think I'm wondering, what does like a fire show look like? I mean, are you doing a show? Are you just kind of like picking up an object and you're like, look at this, and then putting it away, or like how does that work exactly? And if a client's booking something, what can they expect from that kind of an experience?
Absolutely, and that's a great question. So I am insured and licensed, which means I know all the safety protocols. I know what's required. In Connecticut, they changed all the laws. Fun
Hmm.
in 2025. Sorry, they didn't change them. They reinterpreted the laws.
Uh,
So they changed things up, so there's a lot more permitting involved.
mhm,
But the way I do shows is I build upon my shows with a non-repeating fire show, and the way
mhm.
I do it is my fire gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Hmm.
So and I will start with some good big fire,
So
but
you start with a match, and then
yeah, kind of. I usually start with fire eating, actually,
that's
brings people
impressive.
in. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's small fire, but when it's in your mouth, it's very people are like, "Whoa, that's,
Yeah.
kind of crazy." And
Your
I
dentist
start.
must not like that though.
No, some people have had issues.
That's
Honestly,
good.
my dentist is impressed. I've been doing this for over 20 years, and he's like, "Your teeth are great." I
Yeah.
have some other stuff that has nothing to do with, dental stuff. Just make sure you floss all the time.
Uh,
And, water floss or pick thing, whatever
yes.
it's called, game changer,
It
super
puts
game
out the
changer.
fire. That's what it is. You're putting out
Yeah,
the fire as
yeah.
you're.
Yeah, so I do non-repeating shows. I always start with,
Mhm.
don't try this at home or at anyone
Mhm.
else's home, and then I find somebody who's not paying attention. I'm like, I see you. It's usually a dad, and I'm like, I
Mhm.
see you. Don't try this at home. You want to know more. I also run the Connecticut Spin Jam,
Mhm.
just to jump over. I've been doing that for 13, 14 years now. I have a team that helps me, but we do that on Wednesdays.
Mhm.
We do fire in Bethany in the warm weather, and we're in Meriden inside in the winter, just because I love creating community.
Mhm.
And that's just something I've done. So if you are want to learn more about flow arts, that is it. And circus flow arts, they kind of overlap in various
I
aspects.
was gonna actually ask you that next. I'd love to get it's kind of talk about the fire, but then talk
Yeah,
about after that maybe what's the difference between flow and circus and kind of I know it's overlap, but kind of talk a little
yeah.
more about that.
Absolutely. So back to the fire show, it depends. Are you getting a 10-minute show? Are you getting a 20-minute show? Are you
I
doing a
mean,
30-minute show, 45-minute show?
I guess the question also is, what is a good length? I mean, kind of because I think most, I always say we're cursed with knowledge. We've been doing this for a long time, so you and I both know, what works and what works in which environment and things like that. But people that are listening into this conversation may have no idea, or probably have never booked a fire show in their life, and they're like, "Well, I want a 2.5 hour fire show. That sounds amazing." And then it's impossible for one person to do, as you know. So I
Right.
think
So
that's always part of the conversation is, what is a realistic time frame? What is a good idea? Is 5 minutes of a fire show impressive? I mean, is that too short? What can somebody expect, and what should they expect, or what should they ask for?
absolutely. So I think there's two things that have to factor in. One is budget.
Sure.
Do you have an extensive budget? Do you have a minimal budget? Um, I would say my 30-minute show is what most people book me for. It's a really nice length with the way our society is. People's attention span kind of start to go. The 20, 30 minutes tend to be the best. Attention span wise, I mean, they're all the best. But 45-minute show is great, but you might start to lose some people. So that's really good for like an ambient show, which is just kind of I'm there doing fire. Still non-repeating. I think that's really important because people will be like, I can do a 30-minute show and they're just going to spin poi for 30 minutes. Now there's several different types of poi adjacent props that you can build, and like this one's small and this one's big and these are really long, and those are different. I feel like those are different. They're adjacent, but they look different. They're a different feel, more fire. And I love when Magical Memories Entertainment sends me text messages when I'm talking to you. They just sent me a booking gig. Please tell CJ I will get back to her when I am done. Whatever that was for, I will respond after. I love that. Those are my favorite texts. Hey, do you want to do this gig? Yes. The answer is always yes. Unless I have a gig already, and then let's see if we can make it work. So say you book a 30-minute fire show. Travel, of course, is separate. You are getting a roped off perimeter. Either with cones or stakes. Sometimes people already have their own perimeter set up. If it's an event that has a stage, then that won't be part of it. You're going to have insurance. If there's permits involved, I will do the permitting. There's a additional fee. Like if you're in Connecticut, the administrative admin fee, I will take care of it, just gets added on. And then I'm also bringing a safety technician. There's always someone with me, sometimes two, depending on the event, that is both keeping everyone safe, also monitoring what I'm doing, helping me fuel, lots of things. And there's multiple eyes. So that fee, when we do it, also includes a safety technician. So it's always two people. People are like, that's for you. And I'm like, I'm also risking my life, right? You do something wrong, you could get seriously hurt. That's why they pay me the big bucks and you're just watching, right? That's what I say when people are like, can I do this? I'm like, you can, with a lot of practice. You don't start with the fire. But so 30-minute fire show, plenty of space, no limits on space. Like a rope dart's very long, like think Mortal Kombat, like finish him. Whoosh. But if it's a tiny space, there is not room for a rope dart. But say lots of room, 30-minute show, we're going to have fire eating. You're going to have fire fans. You're either going to have a levy wand or a rope dart, depending on the space. You're going to have fire poi. You're going to have fire hula hoop, which is what I've been doing on fire the longest. And I feel like that's one of the most impressive things. They're all impressive, but I do a lot of different tricks and foot hooping and things like that. Sometimes if there's room, I throw in the cartwheel. People are like, what? It's a cartwheel? No, I cannot do backflips. Sorry. I wish I could too. Because that's always the next question I get asked. And then I'm either going to move on to either like the parasol or the dragon staff, depending, maybe the fire crown, depending on what is happening. If it's a wedding, I often do the heart with sparkles. That's a great photo op. I balance the heart, do some fun things, but then I'll just hold it up behind, the couple or a sweet 16. And then it's great. They're not touching the fire. They're on the other side of the barrier. Don't want to avoid that insurance, but they'll stand there, take great photo ops with the flaming heart. And then I almost always, weather dependent, of course, and with fire breathing, ask them if they want to see me turn into a dragon. And then I turn into a dragon. Sometimes it's just fire breathing. Sometimes it's a small space and it's palm torches and fire eating and a levy wand and fans and poi, because that's all the space allows. So it just depends, but that's why I offer so many different things. Fire bubbles are great for like photo shoots kind of things. I used to do in my fire show, in my bubble shows. Now I don't always do it because fire, you need a second person. But there's so many different things you can do. People were like, oh, I want this, I want that theme. Oh, I have a sword. I knew there was something that was missing. I have a saber. I have a fire sword, and I have a cinder stick, which puts all these sparks into the air. Super fun, like little fireflies. Need a lot of space for that. So I knew there was a couple of things I was missing. So I have a sword. I had a pirate themed party. Great. That was going to be poi, sword, dragon staff, fire eating, fire breathing. I had a princess themed fire party that I had the heart, I had the crown, the hula hoop, the palm torches. I'm on a big flat pavement space with nice and flat. Obviously, I'm adding the fire roller skates. So it just kind of depends, if I'm on grass, am I on the beach? Where are the people? What kind of audience it is? I have a variety of costumes ranging from like the most conservative Orthodox, like very reserved religions that are like, everything's covered, and they love fire. Everyone loves
Mhm.
fire, right? So stuff from that to, Burning Man style, kids
Ah,
parties,
sure.
holiday themed,
Hmm.
so I always try to work with the customer. Oh, we want you to wear this crazy colored thing and
Hmm.
whatever, as long as it's fire safe, natural fibers,
Hmm.
I make it work. As the goal is to make the customer happy.
Sure, absolutely. That's
They say
great
the
though.
customer is always right. I don't know that that's always correct because the customer doesn't know what they don't
Sure,
know.
sure,
Right.
exactly.
So, but we want to make them happy and we want to answer all the questions.
Yep,
So
that's true.
yeah, so that's usually a fire performing goes, and I'll sometimes let the people choose, and a lot of times they're just like, you pick whatever you think is best.
Sure, sure,
And,
sure.
I'm like, send me a picture of where I'm performing. And I pick the best stuff. And,
Yeah.
and then there's a few other things I spin on fire, but I enjoy it and I can spin them safely and it's great,
Hmm.
but not as many things as some of these other ones.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Do you,
that's why you're paying a higher price for someone
hmm.
who's not going to do three tricks over and over again,
Hmm.
and someone who's going to do a whole multitude of tricks and multiple
Hmm.
things, just more and more and more building.
Hmm. Hmm. So, I mean, you mentioned a lot of different pieces, like a lot of different type of apparatus. I mean, is this something that you do like is it a comedy show? Is it done to music? How does usually the vibe of it work?
Sure. So there's a couple different ways you could do it. There's ambient, which is just I'm in this spot.
Hmm.
Maybe it's at an event like a corporate event or a festival,
Hmm.
and we're just kind of on the side. Maybe we're performing to the live band. So many times I perform to music I've never heard before in my life.
Hmm.
Sometimes I bring my own music and I have a
Hmm.
lovely speaker that I have, and I'll talk to
Hmm.
the audience. If it's like a fair and it's a stage show or it's in a backyard,
Hmm.
I introduce myself. I'm Lady Blaze, and I say the same thing. Please don't try this at home or anyone else's home. I'm about to give you a show with that grows and gets bigger and bigger and more fire. Non-repeating props. Is that something you guys want to see? And then they're like, yeah. And then I always
Hmm.
love to hype up my audience. Okay, if I do something really cool and you're gonna make a lot of noise, that's gonna sound like this. Because otherwise, people stare
Hmm.
at the fire and they're like,
Ah,
and
that's a good
I'm
point.
like, are they excited? Are they happy? Are they amazed? Like, I don't know what they're feeling. So I
Hmm.
often encourage the audience to like kind of get involved. If they see something
Sure.
like make some noise, because then they're like, oh yeah, it can be loud. Also, they're afraid if they make noise that like they're like, if I
You're gonna
breathe,
trip
she
up.
might catch herself on fire.
Sure.
And that's not the case. Also, like, the hair is up for me anyway. Everyone performs their own thing. The props that I do, I like my hair long, so I put it up.
Hmm.
But if I'm doing a stage show, it's going to be like music. Every prop has its own song. If
Hmm.
I'm performing at a concert, which happens sometimes, my most
Hmm.
notable two favorite concerts, and I don't know that they knew who I was. I mean, they saw the fire, but I performed for Tom Petty
Oh wow.
and I performed for the Allman Brothers. I've also performed for a bunch of
Oh.
other, and the Bob Marley and the well, not Bob Marley, but the Wailers. There's
Hmm.
been so many other people I performed for, Dirt Wire, a bunch of other people, but like those were some of my highlights. And they'd be like, I can see the fire. They don't know who I am, but like I can say
Ah.
that I perform for them. But I do a lot of backyard parties, so for them, it's like, okay, I'm going to get up with my hula hoop and I'm going to do a
Hmm.
bunch of moves. And hopefully I know the song, but maybe I don't.
Hmm.
And I wouldn't say you fake it, but you kind of just do your props. You can hear
You
the
know,
beat. A good dancer can like feel the rhythm, even if you don't know
yeah,
the song, and okay, this sounds like it's about to be a crescendo or that's going to be a
sure.
drop. And then you do like toss it in the air or do something fun because you can kind of just feel it.
Well, I was gonna say that leads us back to what we were talking about a minute ago with the flow arts versus circus stuff necessarily, or just flow arts in general. I feel like that's kind of what you just hit the nail on the head of what flow arts is. If I understand it right, and don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, I am not a flow arts performer, so I'm just making an assumption, I guess.
Yeah.
So tell
That's
me, what is that? You mentioned flow arts, being in charge of that kind of stuff, and what does that exactly entail, and how does that kind of fit into what you're doing here?
Sure. So like circus kind of goes across, and something I also do, and I guess I didn't mention, is I also do educational circus where I go with
Hmm.
a couple programs and I go into schools and teach
Hmm.
circus arts, and
Hmm.
teach the kids how to hula hoop, how to juggle. I can juggle. I don't perform with juggling. It is not my main skill.
Hmm.
I also don't know how to ride a unicycle, but I can roller skate and walk on stilts. So there's
Okay.
options here. Um, but so one thing I learned through that company that I work with sometimes, that really to me, the biggest difference between circus and flow is flow
Hmm.
keeps going and circus does a trick and then stops for applause.
Interesting. Okay.
So I'm hula hooping and I'm going this trick to that trick to this trick to that trick, especially with the fire. It's hard to just stop. You're like, yay.
When the
Sometimes I
fuel runs
do.
out, that's when you
Yeah,
stop.
like when I'm foot hooping, I'll look at the crowd and just be like, hey, and they're like, oh. But with circus, it's like, we're going to juggle this move and stop, bow. And then we're going to do this move and stop, bow, applause. Then we're going to do this
Applause
thing
cue.
over here, pause, applause. Where the flow artist doesn't really seem to pause for the applause. And, I've had people be like, hula hoop's not traditional circus, but look at the Russians. Right? Circus. They're doing that. There's so many different things. I don't do aerials. Some people consider that circus. I've heard people say that's flow. A lot of flow is spinning things. So flow arts, manipulating props in a positive way. This is the only good manipulation is when you're manipulating a item in your hand in a beneficial way that doesn't hurt anyone. Just want to be clear about that. So if I'm spinning something, I'm manipulating the prop to do what I want it to do and move around my body without hitting myself. But sometimes when you're doing this is imaginary poi, and then you're like, stop, pause. Okay, but now the fire is now going up because fire always goes up, right? So it's hard to like do that pause. It kind of just like, and then, do whatever you're doing. So I feel like with a lot of circus, it's really based on like do a move and then wait for applause. And I can't say that that's 100%, but it seems like from whenever I talk to people who are very like circus, circus, circus and not flow, they're like, you never wait for an applause.
Yes.
And I'm like, you got pause for the applause. And I'm like, but music, keep dancing.
Yes.
So flow is like a dancer who's not going to stop in the middle of their show, in the middle of the song, they'll pause and take a bow at the end. And then the circus arts is like, do a trick, pause. And they're all very difficult. So, I mean, I've tried to add in more pauses for applause, but that's not 100%. I mean, and there's different circus life. Some people travel around the world. I always wanted to go to clown college, and it closed 2 years before I graduated high school. And that was my goal. And then it closed, and they're like, well, what else can you do? So I actually have 3 college degrees.
Okay.
I have an associate's in early childhood education. I have a bachelor's in psychology with a concentration in mental health. And then I have a master's in recreation and leisure studies management administration. I know, such a big mouthful, which I really went into like event planning and stuff like that. But honestly, my favorite part is the performing, the booking, the scheduling. It's just part of the job. But I like getting out there. I want to put the costume together. I want to do the music. I want to write the routine. I just want to get out there and perform. If I'm doing the mime, yes, there's a lot of things I could do as a mime, but I'm going to go out there and meet with the people and see what they want. For instance, one of the gigs you sent me to, a very prestigious birthday party, which I was honored to do, everyone interacted with me for the first half hour. And then they went on to do like these different like speeches and stuff. And so I watched and, just was very exaggerated. And then they did some appetizers and I just pretended to water the flowers all around. And I'd look at people and because at that point people were done engaging with me, but I was still there. So I was just like, oh, we're going to just like, plant the flower. And obviously I'm not talking. We're going to water the flower and I'm admiring the flower. And then I'd often pick the flower and give it to someone, smell it first, right? Because they need to know it's a good smelling flower, not a, right? So, and then give it to someone, right? And then they're just like, they had no idea. I'll do that with like balloons too, you blow up a, and then you gotta tie it off, right? And put the string on it, and then it goes. But somehow these balloons get really, they just fill with helium, and then you're just like, so wait, I'm just come here, and then you give it to person, and you like bring it down, and then they hand it, and they're just like. You're like, oh, it's a good balloon, right? So it just depends on, what you're doing. Everything is different. I could show up and be like, it's the same show, same music. I have a lot of fire themed music because people are often like, do you have fire songs? Like the amount of times I have breathed fire to Pitbull's Fireball, that Zumba song is like, do I listen to that on my own? Like in the car? No, not usually unless I'm prepping for a gig. But people love it, and I do the same song, kind of the same routine. It's different every single time. The audience interactions, building them up, trying to get them to clap, like, also the wind. If it's a very still day, I'm doing all sorts of tricks. If it's a little windy,
Sure.
the wind will, make it a little bit more different on the
Limited.
different tricks, limited, but not,
Sure.
it won't stop it unless it's a hurricane, or a tornado. And usually when that happens, we're rescheduling anyway. So
Fair enough. You know what's
yeah.
interesting? So I mean, I think you're definitely hearing you describe how you do your show and stuff. I think definitely plays into like the idea of what's the difference between the flow arts and a traditional circus. And yes, the skill sets themselves definitely are the same. I mean, at the end of the day, when you're doing poi in circus and poi in flow arts, the exact same thing you're doing and the same techniques and stuff, but the way you do it is different, and the ability to be flexible, I think, is a key part that you're bringing up here. Is that you've definitely described it. I can do so, I can jump into an environment and still perform in any environment, and more of the rigidly trained circus performers may not feel comfortable doing that. Don't be wrong, they're flexible and they can move around and do different things, obviously. But I think the flexibility and the flow that you're doing, for using the word that you have there, is a lot greater in the flow arts versus traditional circus. So I think that's I think you described it quite well.
Thanks. I actually have a really good
Um,
example of that real quick. Is I
sure,
was doing
please.
a performance and I was saying, oh, I really was feeling this song today. So I'm going to do my performance to this song. And I love it. And I know the song really well. So I was doing the performance and they said, oh, you have to have the same song all the time, right? You have to do the same show, same
Hmm.
act. We want it, it has to be exactly, this way every time. And I said, I can do that,
Hmm.
but sometimes my body's feeling a certain way. And I just, or sometimes this
Hmm.
song's really resonating with me and, whatever it was.
Hmm.
And they had this whole thing. They're like, have to do a song, whatever. So I picked the song, do the song. The next time I work with them again, for whatever reason, the music wasn't playing. The speaker wasn't playing. Nothing was playing. They had my music. My music was, I didn't bring my speaker. Now I know better to not bring, now I just bring my speaker every time anyway. I don't rely on other people. You only learn that lesson once.
Hmm.
But, they were like, oh, you have to go out. And they're like, the music isn't working. It was something with the platform. I'm not really sure.
Whatever.
Bad service in a school because those schools have like zero service. I'm not really sure what happened, but the song didn't
Sure.
work. The song that I had prepared my routine to did not work. The person who
Hmm.
told me I have to have a song that is done to a routine, the song didn't work. And they said, what are you going to do? I said, well, what other songs do you have? And they said, well, I have this song and this song. And I listened to it for like a second. And I was like, oh yeah, I've heard that one before. Yeah, that sounds good. And they're like, but you haven't routine. It's like, I know the routine. I don't need the song. The song is what
Yeah.
I follow. And they were like, you can't do that. And I went out to the song I had never really heard before. And I did the same routine, listening to the music. So maybe I did a couple things in a different place than I would have done them. And I did the whole thing. And they were kind
Hmm.
of like, wow, that like would have really thrown me off my game. And I said, you have to be
Hmm.
flexible. Like people will just be like, hey, I know you had this whole song routine. We actually have a live DJ and we want them to play. Sometimes this music I've never
Yeah.
listened to. Like I'm not a big country music fan.
Hmm.
Gone to a party, they're
Hmm.
like, we're gonna have you dance to this like hoedown. And I'm like, okay, right. And yeah, I'm dressed in the part. I dress the part because I know, and I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
we're gonna
Hmm.
do this. Like, and it comes out, and they're like, oh, you were great. Did you heard that song before? I was like, nope, but you just feel it. I feel like any good
Hmm.
artist, whether circus or flow or whatever, if you
Hmm.
know your prop, if you're at the point where you're performing, you should be able to perform no matter what. The music isn't there, you can still perform. They're playing a
Hmm.
crazy song, you should still perform. You're spinning and they decide to go on and thank their audience for 20 minutes about how much they love them while you're doing an entire 20-minute set, to them
Hmm.
talking about how grateful they are to have you, not me, but like just the audience supporting them. And
Yeah.
you're like, I'm spinning to them talking. But you still make it work. That's when there's a song playing in my head, and and I you just
Still
make it
going.
happen. Yeah. And I
Sure.
think just being flexible is really important. I did a event the other day and I was supposed to be a singing elf. I was a singing elf in July. And they showed up and I said, they're like, you're an elf, maybe sing some Christmas songs. It was a special needs adult, love Christmas in
Mm.
July. That was his birthday. And I guess Santa couldn't make it this year. His reindeers got sick or something. So they had me come down because I'm an honorary elf. I know Santa pretty well, even though I'm a Jew. It's okay. Santa and I are like this, right? We're besties.
Well, that makes perfect sense though, because the Jews are the only ones that work on Christmas, so it makes
They
perfect
are,
sense.
they are. So I went down in July and I showed up at this special needs home and they were like, hey, you're an elf. And I show up and, sparkle, sprinkle, what was it? Sparkle Twinkle Sparkle or Twinkle Jingle or Jingle Sparkle Jingle Sparkle Twinkle. That was what it is. And then the guy immediately was like, Sparkles, here, karaoke, and put a microphone in front of me and was like, sing Christmas songs. So I was like, cool, I got this, I got this. But then he's like, let's sing Fleetwood Mac, let's sing Whitney Houston,
Oh
let's
boy.
sing. There was some other ones. There was like a Leonard Skinner, and I'm like, okay, like let's
Oh,
go with this.
sure.
And the people there were like so impressed. They're like, you know this? I was like, there was a couple times I was like, oh, we're just gonna pull out our phone real quick and put the lyrics right there, you know.
Sure.
I didn't, and then they're like, okay, you're done singing. There's a keyboardist coming in. Now we want you to dance to the keyboardist who's gonna play a bunch of songs that you've never heard before. As an elf and just engage
Yeah.
everyone. And there was a bunch of special needs and they were in wheelchairs, and I was just like 2 hours of being an elf, and I just
Made it
all
happen.
elfy and danced around and was singing, and like they were like, we want you to come back next year. You
Aw.
have to come back. This was amazing. I walked in there not knowing what I was doing. They said, you're an
Sure.
elf for 2 hours for a special needs adult. That
You
was
know
it.
what? I would love for you to kind of just dive into a little bit more about the special needs stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
that's you touched on it and kind of your environment, but I mean, that's something that we do a lot of work with is is different populations. Can
But
you
yeah.
kind of talk about, that aspect of it and maybe a little bit about how you handle it and how you change how you do things like that?
Yeah, so like I said, I've been an educator for 20 years, and I have specifically focused in. I used to do special needs. I had a hard time not taking it home specifically, so I kind of switched gears.
Mm,
I've worked with a lot of low income populations, populations of children, challenging children, because I think I was one of those challenging children.
mm,
I had ADHD as a woman,
mm,
and as a girl in the 90s, and that just wasn't, girls didn't have ADHD. So like I feel like I can really relate and resonate,
mm,
but I go into these programs and I just see what the need is. This is the same when I go into education and when I'm teaching a class or anything.
mhm,
Some teachers come in and this is what we're doing and this is what we're learning and this is how it's got to be. And if you're not sitting
mhm,
still and you're not doing the thing, you're out of the class. I am the
mm,
person they send the kids that get kicked out of the class to. As for
mm,
years, 20 plus years as a camp instructor, director, counselor, coordinator,
mhm,
running different programs,
mhm,
all the things. And I just, I didn't know what I was walking into. I asked for, hey, can you tell me what they want? They said they want an elf, maybe sing.
mhm.
Okay, I can sing, sure. It's July, I'll brush up on some Christmas songs, but they didn't give me
Ah,
anything. And then I walked in and the guy goes, I think he turned 33, but special needs. So, he hands it, he
sure.
goes, here you go, Sparkles, hands me a karaoke mic, puts me on a stage, and then I'm just singing to the community that's there. And I didn't know. And like I said, he put on Fleetwood Mac, and I was like, thank goodness I was like, are we listening to Stevie Nicks? And the people that were working there were laughing. The lady, the ones that were overseeing the event that work at the home,
Mhm.
help take care for these special needs. They were just laughing. They're like, thanks for rolling with it. And he just kept throwing on different songs and like
Ah,
he was like, would put on a Christmas song, but it was a remix and it would have some other
mhm,
songs. And then, I go in and I see what they want.
mhm,
Do a lot
that
of
makes
bubble
sense.
shows for special needs and little
Yeah.
kids. What do they
How
need?
do
Am I
how do bubble shows work exactly? I mean, if you're, I feel that a lot of people we talk about bubble shows and what they think like, oh, do you just have like a bubble wand and you blow bubbles for an hour? Like, what is a bubble show? Can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah, for sure. So I feel like I do three different types of bubble experiences. I
Okay,
like to go with experiences, right?
I
We have a
agree.
bubble show, we have interactive bubbles,
Mhm,
and then there's ambient bubbles. So
mhm,
ambient bubbles is I'm going to show up with some wands, not just one little bubble wand, but a lot of really cool wands. Some that you've helped me, incorporate. Love the giant net. It's a big hit. Ambient bubbles. I'm going to go there. I'm going to bring a bunch of different bubble stuff. Um,
mhm,
and I'm just kind of doing bubbles on the side. I might do some of the stuff I do with the bubble show,
mhm,
but mostly I'm making big bubbles for the kids. They're
mhm,
either it's at a fair, it's at an event, it's at the camp, and I'm just making giant bubbles, and the kids are running around the bubbles or making lots of
mhm,
little bubbles, and the kids are,
mhm.
or even adults. Adults love bubbles. Teenagers
Everybody
love
loves bubbles.
bubbles. Everyone loves bubbles. It's always the teenagers that run towards the bubbles first, honestly, because I would do the same thing. So I'm just like ambient bubbles is just I'm making lots and lots of bubbles. And I'm not just
Mhm,
sitting there with like one little like dinky wand. I'm making lots of big bubbles and stuff like that.
mhm,
A interactive bubbles is where I actually bring buckets of bubble juice. Don't drink it, it's got soap in it, make it but as I
mhm,
tell the kids, and the kids get to make the bubbles. So the
mhm,
interactive bubbles is I'm going to bring a bunch of bubble bins. I'm going to bring some different wands. Some of them are more like you would see. Some of them are a little bit bigger. The kids can make giant bubbles. And then I put out a bunch of bins. So then the kids are making bubbles. And then I'm also ambient bubbling on the side. So I'm still making those giant bubbles like ambient bubbles, but the kids and adults are also getting to make bubbles at the same time. And then the bubble show is the kids are going to sit there, or the adults, or whoever it is, and I'm going to do a bunch of different things. You got the smoke bubble, the kid in the bubble, you know, bubble poi I've made, which is like all the rage now, but I made mine last year. You know, lots of different bubble tricks. I'm a big fan of the bubble slinky. I now have 4 different size bubble slinkies because what's better than a bubble slinky? A bigger bubble slinky, obviously, is clearly the only answer to that. I have my Hoperman sphere, you know, the thing that grows. So the bubble show is I interacted. I do a couple things. I'm a big fan of my badminton bubbles, because this badminton's fun, but it's way better with bubbles. So, you know, I have a couple volunteers come up and bounce the bubbles back and forth with the badminton. We just try to go for one volley, at least a little bit. If they're little preschoolers, I'm probably going to just bubble badminton a little bit on my own. We do the bubble caterpillar with the foam, you know, so it's a show. Is the show 20 minutes? Is it 30 minutes? Is it 45 minutes? That's going to depend. And that's going to either, you know, I'm going to do more tricks with certain things. I'm going to add in stuff that maybe the other shows don't have. I think the biggest ones I feel that I book is like I did at the library. It was like a 30-minute bubble show. And then I tell them, you know, take a sip of water, take a moment. And then I put out the bubble stuff for the kids to play. Because now they're like, oh my God, bubbles, right? So now they go and play and they want to try to make all the big bubbles. And, you know, making hand bubbles. I'm putting my hands through the bubbles because my hand's wet. So, you know, and then
telling the secret. You just told everybody the secret how you do it.
oh yeah. Well, if you want bubbles to not pop, things have to be wet. If they're dry, they're gonna pop. But I feel like most people know that. Honestly, that when a bubble pops, it's okay because you can just make another bubble.
That's
yeah, everyone's gonna go home and just have their hands in bubbly soap. And yeah, but everyone should play with bubbles. It's so fun. And then just acquiring the different things to make the bubble show more fun. So I often do various things. They'll book me for ambient for a while, or they'll bubble show or interactive, or you know, any various amount like that. The interactive is really fun. I was at a camp the other day and it was very interesting. They were preschool camp. So I had 4 groups. There was like a 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, and then 4 to 5. 4 to 5. And I put the bubbles and had 4 bins. So I gave, you know, and wands for every kid. And the little kids and the counselors, free for all. Kids are just dumping the bubbles, dipping bubbles. The older kids are like taking a turn making bubbles until they saw all the other kids making bubbles. And they're like, can't we make bubbles? And the staff are trying to be so systematic about the kids doing bubbles. So I just walked over and started making bubbles. And the kids were like, oh, because they were just waiting, you know, and that was just, and the other kids were like going crazy. So it's just, it depends. Every group's a little different. And then I'm making my ambient bubbles and yeah.
I was gonna say, so I mean, is this something that you're, you know, what environments does this? You mentioned a couple different types of events, but like, can this be done indoors? Is it just outdoors? How messy is this? Like, what does this look like?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, outdoors is the least messy. Ideally, grass is fun to sit in. I do have mats that I've gotten. There is the bubble community, which is amazing, and so I have these great mats that go on the floor when I am inside that soak up the bubbles. Not so great for your washing machine, but who needs laundry
foam
detergent
coming out of the washing machine?
I had a Dennis the Menace episode one day. For those that remember, back then, the Dennis the Menace accidentally put all the bubbles in the washing machine. I don't even think it was his. I think it was Mr. Wilson's next door, but he overflows the washing machine with bubbles. And it happened to me once. Everything was fine, but I opened the washing machine and it just like foam was just coming out of the washing machine because of those mats. But yeah, I can do inside, I can do outside. The limitations of outside is wind, which is really cool for some things and really inhibits if you're trying to put something or someone in a bubble and the wind's just blowing the bubble. It's not going to work as well when you're inside and there's no wind. You can just lift the bubble up. However, if it's really windy, you can just hold open your bubbles and the wind will just make them go. So there's pros and cons inside and outside. Different tools. And, you know, I make it work. I work with the people. I'm always really open. The gig the other day was in a downpour and tornadoes the day before. And they were like, can we do this? And so I brought everything to be inside in case the ground was too wet and the kids couldn't go out. Luckily, it was really sunny. Everything dried up. But I make it work. And when you're not sure how to make it work, you reach out to the community and say, hey, I have this issue. Has anyone done this before?
Sure.
And community for the most part is pretty cool. I'm a big advocate of not gatekeeping. Okay, there's some secrets, but like you want to learn to spin fire, like come to a CT spin jam and I will teach you fire safety. It's most important. You're having trouble filling out the permits for these things. I've now done it. I'll help you. You're not understanding. Here, I'm just going to give you a copy of what I did. Fill it in with the pieces you need. Why do we have to make it more difficult? There's enough things out there.
Yeah, you're lucky. When I first started, so I've been doing bubble shows for 15 years about. And when I first started, it was like the most secret thing in the world. Like double bubble performances and bubble shows. Nobody told anything. You're like, figure it out. And like I figured it out, you figure it out. I'm like, that's not fair.
That's how fire was when I first started, before Facebook and MySpace, before I went to the group. It's like also like magicians. Like now people are just putting stuff on YouTube.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's the magicians. I feel like when I first started, it wasn't as much of a secret. Like somewhat of a secret, but back in the day. But like I was like, coming from the magician world. Like I was a magician since I was a kid, so I was performing for a while as a magician, and I went over to the bubble community. And when I was doing bubble shows, like it was like the most secret thing. I'm like, I thought magicians were secretive. Like this was like, they're like, no, like it's soap and other things. Like you figure it out. I'm like, I don't even know where to start.
Yeah. And that's part of the reason. I mean, I'm not going to tell everyone everything. That's why, you got to hire someone. But if someone's, and someone wants to know, like when I started doing fire, you didn't just do fire. I mean, you could. And I actually met someone yesterday who was like, I've just been spinning in my backyard. I had no idea there was other people that spun. And I was like, I've been spinning. I have a spin jam like a mile from your house for the last like umpteen years. And they're like, oh, I didn't even know there was other people in Connecticut that did this. I was like, yes, there's many. So like, am I going online making YouTube videos? Like, this is how you do it? No, I really hate fire videos on YouTube where people explain it, because fire is not something you can just learn by watching, maybe with the bubbles. But I feel like it used to be like you had to apprentice, you had to know somebody, you had to learn under them, like just like a trade. And I feel like that's kind of lost. And yeah, it's really cool that you can just look online and like learn everything, but also you're missing some of that spark, I think, like learning stuff from other people. Like when we got together and like we have a flow jam, I felt like we were having a bubble jam, like where it's like, hey, I'm not going to like teach you this, but here we can do this together and like experience this together and then like kind of build together. And I think that's really important. And I think getting things in person and not just watching everything on videos. And if you're like, hey, I'm kind of interested in doing this, but I don't know anyone, I'm sure there's someone around, that is the tool to get online and find the community. But then don't stay online. You have to get out and do it. Like you can talk and talk and talk. And I could say, I can eat fire. I could practice without the fire all day long. But as soon as you have fire coming towards your face, you're like, oh my God, there's fire in my face. Like it is vastly different. And the amount of people who are like, I could do that. And then they're like, no, that's okay. Like, I'm good. Like you can talk the talk. Can you walk the walk? But don't just go there. Like I didn't start hula hooping, put fire on my hoop, right? I hula hooped for a long time that I felt really comfortable. Then I added the fire. Fire eating and fire breathing, you could kind of only practice so much without the fire. But it's really important to practice these things. And like even though I started working recently with bubbles with you and only started adding bubbles to my repertoire number of years ago, I've been doing bubbles in camps for over 20 years, and we would have bubble day, and it was like every camp every summer would be like LB's bubble day, and it would be like one day of the season that I would not really be with my group or whatever I normally would be doing, and I would just do bubble tricks, bubble shows, sort of not the same way I do it now, but I would just do bubble play, and I'd get out there with the kids and make big bubbles and show them different bubble things. And so for free, because I was working at the camp, and I was like, but I'd give them my entire day and do this whole thing and set up. And I was like, why am I doing these for camps when I could also be doing these, along with my business? Plus fire is 1, expensive, 2, dangerous, 3, you need space and all that stuff. Bubble shows is a lot more accommodating. It's more interactive.
Accessible, right?
It's more accessible. That's a great word. Yeah. So like bubble shows really, were just kind of a thing I was doing for like friends and things like that. And once I started adding them, like I've done so many bubble shows compared to fire shows. The licensing with the new permits probably plays into that a little bit.
Well, you know, it's interesting. You kind of lead me to the next thought I wanted to kind of bring up is you talk about being more accessible. You mentioned this way early on, the idea that there's another type of thing you can do that's not fire, but uses similar apparatus. You do
Oh,
LED stuff.
LEDs, yes.
So can you kind of talk about what that might look like and what that that is and what that entails?
Yeah, absolutely. So LEDs, light emitting diodes, right? Isn't that
Sure.
illuminating? No, emitting. And so we have, sorry, I didn't
Yeah,
prep
I
that
think
one.
people know what LEDs are,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. So you got your
the light up
LEDs.
things.
Yeah, yeah, the light up thing. So I feel like there's so many initial like abbreviations for things, but
Yeah.
yeah, typical LEDs. And then so we take like a hula hoop and we fill it with lights.
Hmm.
You take the poi and you put lights on the end, the
Hmm.
spinny balls. So LED show is great because, well, one, it's better at night. Fire can kind of be in the daytime, it's still fire. It's not as bright. LEDs kind of needs to be dusk or
Sure.
dark. But it's a variety of props. So whatever, again, kind of you can afford. One thing I do find with LED in the community is because it's not fire, there's no danger level. And if you have the
Hmm.
funds, you can buy whatever LED prop you want and spin,
Mm.
which is cool. And you could also be an amazing performer and just not have the funds to buy that $500 hula hoop
Hmm.
or that $700 pair of LED fans. So I feel like the LED world of performing is a little different because you could be a great performer, but if you don't have the look, like it kind of varies.
You know what?
So
It's interesting you bring that up. I mean, we never really talk about the cost of this. So you mean like, that is an important note is that, both, I mean, obviously the fire stuff as well as now the LED stuff. The LED
also
stuff
a
is
couple hundred
actually
dollars.
there. Yeah. I mean, the fire stuff, it may be, is that more, you say is more economical, it's more affordable to do it?
Honestly, yeah. To get like say a pair of fire poi, I bought a brand new pair
Hmm.
last year with little light up handles, beautiful Technora lengths, the part that holds it together for those watching, like the string part,
Sure.
$250.
Okay. But
So if I
so
want to get a
it's,
beautiful pair of light up poi that are going to put a picture in it that I can hook
uh,
up to the computer, we're talking over $1,000.
so that's interesting. So it's a different set of a different reason. So something that's going to cost just because it's less dangerous, it's not necessarily going to be a less expensive show
Right.
because the investment to get to the point of being able to do that is a greater amount. So you're investing
And
either
they're fragile.
your time or your funds. You're actually investing in the equipment to do the experience. So both are expensive, both require an
Yes.
investment. So that's what people are getting compensated. It's not just you showing up. At the end of the day, your time is not necessarily, or I mean, you
Right.
just showing up to that event is not all that somebody's paying for. It's the
Right.
all the investment you put into it.
Right. And people always be like, oh, I can kind of hula hoop. Can I use your hula hoop? And then they're like
Mm.
upset if you say no. But it's
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, this is a $500 hula hoop. And if you
Mm-hmm.
break it, you
You'd be
just broke
very
a
unhappy.
$500 hula hoop, right? This is $1,000 poi.
Yeah.
Someone's poi broke and
I've
they
done
reached out
double
to
sticks
me.
somewhere. I did it
Yeah.
when I was a kid, right? That's yeah.
Right. So it's like, oh, cool. So it's like, cool. Here's another hula hoop that's not LED that like knock your socks off, right? You could
Mm-hmm.
drop it, not gonna be upset. So like that's the thing with the LED. I met a girl just this week and she had the same one who didn't know there was a community. And she had
Mm-hmm.
like every LED. Like she put my LEDs to shame. And I was just
Ah,
like, and she was so sweet, so sweet. So I was like, you have to come to the spin jam, right? Like you have to join the community.
mm-hmm.
One of us, right? But I'm looking at this array of like 12 different LED props she has. And I'm just like, I don't even have 12 LED props because like it's expensive, right? Like I can do a
Sure.
30-minute show, no problem. And I was like, this is amazing. Like, what do you do for work? She goes, I had someone buy it for me. I had someone that just
Ah,
wanted to buy these all for me. And like she's okay with some of them,
sure.
but she had these gorgeous all of her stuff was like high-end stuff. And I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
she had someone, I guess she doesn't even talk to him anymore. So I don't know who he
Ah, ah,
was that she was talking, but she has like a dozen LED props, and each of these props are easily $500 or more. And,
wow.
and she has the access, me. And I think she lives with other people or home. I don't know. That's on her. She was still a wonderful human, had nothing to do with her specifically. I live at home. I live alone. Rent
Sure.
is expensive.
Circumstances.
It's
Yeah.
like, hey, I'm going to buy this $400 hula hoop. Oops, my car needed a $400 brake job.
Mm,
I guess we're going now. Granted, the LED is going to get me more gigs, but I need the car to
sure.
get there. So, like, that's lately been my like, I'm going to buy a new hula hoop because I love my hoop, but I want a new fancier one. And it's always like, I want
Mm-hmm.
this.
But you know what's
but
interesting
life.
also, it also requires, I mean, it's not just the tools too, it's your ability to utilize them, as you just said.
Right,
You know, somebody can have a dozen different props, but if
right.
you don't know how to do the tricks or the use of it at the level that you do, you're not going to deliver the same experience. So I think that's a really important note, is it's not just about, you know, I have 30 props or I have 20 props or whatever, but what can you do with those props, and how do you deliver it, and how do you, you know, your experience of being able to take that prop and put it to a different song or a different environment, as you mentioned. I think that's a key part to mention as well. So I love that. You know, I do want to. We've been talking for a little while now, and I know
Yeah.
you have people to call back to book more of parties with. But I wanted to get into a couple other things. We talked about bubbles, we
Sure.
talked about fire, some LED stuff. One other thing that you've gotten into, and you mentioned at the beginning, is the Simon Says stuff. And I've never really talked to somebody about Simon Says and what that is. I think a lot of people think, oh, like, you know, the kids game, or, you know, a teacher does it to them. How is that something you do for an event? And obviously, you know that I've done it before, but I'd love to hear
Yeah.
kind of your insights into it, and your experience doing it, and why it's something that you can do as an actual activity.
Yeah, yeah. So I once learned, and I know we've talked about this before, and I'm so grateful that you guys do Super Simon Says events. So a long time ago, there was a gentleman, and I'm gonna call him by name because he's awesome, Steve Max, who
Mhm.
would come to my camp that I worked at. As I mentioned, I've worked at camps for over 20 years, and he would come to my camp every year, and he would do his little show, and he would come up in front of like 300 campers and like 100 something staff. So it was like 400 something people doing this. He would call it extreme, Simon Says.
Mm.
And I didn't, as I'm doing it more performing, I didn't want to take from him. Although I did talk to him once online, and I told him, and so I call it Super Simon Says, just
Mhm.
to kind of like mix it up, you know. So I'm like doing Super Simon Says. And then when people are like, what? I'm like, it's extreme. But
Mhm.
basically, it's all about just with being quick and being I hate to use this word, but kind of deceitful in what you're doing, because
Mhm.
what you're doing is you're trying to trick them. If I may
Mhm.
talk about the first time that you brought me in to do it, it was a
Mhm.
graduate class talking about, I believe, cybersecurity, and
Mhm.
like looking for, which was so cool, by the way, looking for, you know, like things are more than meets the eye, right? So
Mhm.
I do a lot of like, you know, oh, Simon, you know, I'm Simon now, you know, the whole thing. And I get the kids all right. We're ready. We're going to start right now. Right. So, like Simon Says, touch your head. Simon says, touch your nose. Simon says, touch your head, touch your nose. If you touch your nose or your shoulders, you're out. But then I make
Right.
a big thing like, but it's okay if you're out. And I always do a practice round, right? Because now you're my judge. Now it's important for you to
Mhm.
watch it, because I can't watch everyone. So now the kids that are out, instead of being like, oh, I'm out, they're like, ooh, I'm watching the counselors. I'm watching this. It becomes really interactive.
Mhm.
You know, Simon Says, touch your shoulders. Simon says, touch your nose. Simon says, touch your head. Simon says, touch your shoulders, touch your nose. Well, now they've touched your nose. You know, Simon says, touch your heads. And usually I do a lot of my knees. I always get them on the
Mhm.
knees. I go, Simon says, touch your knees. And then I touch my head, and they all touch their head, and then they're out. And then I get the last few at the end. And, you know, I bring them up and ask them questions. And often it's something as simple as like, you know, they come up there. We're like, oh, okay, here's our people. Here's our finalists. And I'm like, how you doing today? And they're like, I'm great. And I'm like, I'm so sorry you were out. Right. And then everyone's like, oh no. Right. So the next kid, I'm like, how you doing today? And they're like, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
do you not like me? What did I do? And they're like, and I'm like, okay, Simon Says, how are you doing? They're like, oh, I'm doing so great, right? Like, so I make it really interactive, make it fun. I often do the hokey pokey to give away the
Mm.
secret. Simon says, put your right hand in. Simon says, put your right hand out. Simon says, put your right hand in. Okay, everybody, go ahead and shake it all about. And the kids just instinctively know to shake it all about. But everyone that just shook their hand, you're out,
They're out.
right? So those playing along, if you just shook your hand, have a seat. Now
That's
you're my
fun.
judge. So I just love them. I often play goofy games too, not with those, but that's another thing. Just
Mhm.
as being an educator, the team building, the goofy games,
Mhm.
just getting people out of their, not just out of their comfort zone, but like really pushing them to, you know, we always talk about challenge by choice in a lot of things.
Mhm.
And I feel like I do that with everything, right? Even like a
Mhm.
fire shows, you want to sit up close, you want to sit in the back, right? If you're too comfortable, right, you're sitting at home, we always talk about like, oh, sitting on your couch, eating your favorite snack, watching your favorite TV, you are super
Mhm.
comfortable. There's no growth, there's nothing happening here. You're just like, psh. If you push yourself a little bit into that yellow zone, you're like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm challenging myself. I'm trying something new. Okay, this is exciting. It's fun. It's a little nervous, but you're being supported by your friends,
Mhm.
by, you know, myself, whoever is there. Once you get to that red zone and you're afraid, afraid, right? Someone has a fear of fire and they're that front there's nothing happening. There's no growth happening. There's nothing. They are just afraid. They are shut down, flight, fight, freeze or fawn. They're not there. So, if I'm on stilt walking, which is another thing we didn't really talk about, but like really getting people to feel their comfort zone. And I once did a birthday party for a very tall gentleman for his birthday, and I was on stilts, and they asked me to sing like Marilyn Monroe on stilts. I didn't look like Marilyn Monroe. I was on stilts in a Mardi Gras costume with big plume and beads and wings and all the things. And I showed up at this event to sing to the head of the corporation that they hired me for. And it turns out the guy is afraid of stilt walkers. I didn't know that was a fear, but like people are afraid of clowns. And you can be afraid. People. Yeah, well, he was pretty tall too. He was definitely over 6 feet tall, and he had this fear, and I've learned about it since, that he had this fear of very tall people and on stilts. And so I'm trying to sing to him, and they're trying to get me to stand near him, and he's running across the room. It's a grown man, by the way, a grown man, head of this corporation. It was at a nursing home facility, but they have nursing homes across the country. And this was like their special, like everyone was getting together, like seminar, like all the heads of all the nursing homes were getting together to meet.
With the poor guy.
Yeah, well, and it was his birthday, so they were super. Nobody knew he was afraid of stilt walkers, but one of the nursing homes that just had me at an event, they loved me. They were like, "Oh, we're hosting this year. Please come back." Of course, I'll come back. Yeah, you guys, I love work. I worked with them for many years, and I came in, and the guy was just terrified. But I'm also hired to be there, so I keep singing, and we don't realize until like later that so I'm like casually chasing this guy around the room, right? Like, but no growth was happening there, right? Sure. He was just shut down. Eventually I just stopped. I realized like this guy does not want to be near me for whatever reason. Doesn't want his picture, doesn't like me. I'm like, do I smell? No, I don't smell. Everyone else is taking pictures with me, right? Like all the questions going through your head. I mean, now he's across the room and he's talking to me across the room, nowhere near me. But like, he's like, how's it up there? How tall are you? Because now he feels safe. He's back, right? And at that point, the communication started. And by the very end of it, he did take a photo with me.
From a mile away.
No, he came kind of close. but like he went at first, and it took an hour. It was an hour gig. And, by the final hour, he came over and was like, "Oh, hi, I guess you're a nice person," right? I'm like, I'm 4'11" when I'm not on stilts. But really like, and then the people that hired me are like, no, go stand by him. And he runs to the other side. They're like, go over there. And I'm on stilts, like running across the room, not really running, but like going across. So like I try to meet people where they're at. So like, and I always think that's a funny example because like stilt walking, like, but and then but by the end of talking from far away where he felt safe, we were able to connect. And I feel like that happens with everything. People are like, oh my God, I hate fire. So scary. And by the end, they're like, oh, wow, you're safe. You're not lighting yourself on fire. Same with like LEDs or mesmerize or like the Super Simon Says, like the counselors are too cool, right? But as soon as one of them gets up there, they love it. And to end the Steve Max thing, I worked at the camp very quickly because I love this. The first year he came, I won out of 400 people, Super Simon Says. Wow. The second year, I won out of 400 something people. The third year, I won out of everyone. The fifth year, I won out of everyone. And every year, Steve Max is like, you're back? You're still here? And then it became a joke letter. I was just there to win. So every year, 400 something people, I won. The person who couldn't sit still during school, like, won the Super Simon Says. And you have to look. If you don't look and you're just listening, that's cheating because then you're just listening, right? But the sixth year, I tied with my sister. Who had only worked at summer camp for that 1 year. And I think this is such a funny story, but we tied, and Steve Max looked at me and I was always going, he goes, LB. And I said, yes, Steve Max. And he goes, LB. And I said, yes, Steve Max. And he says, you were really good at this. And I said, thank you. He's like, I need you to go forth into the world and teach extreme Simon Says, because you are obviously a Simon Says master. And this is something you were made to be. Now I was like, early 20s this happened. So I would always play this extreme Simon Says with all my groups. And again, just like the bubbles, there'd be like one day where the directors and the camps and, all the groups would be like, hey, LB, can you come do like a Super Simon Says as our special event? For the hourly price that I was making working as a camp. And anyone that's worked at a camp knows that that's camp wages. So it's so fun now to like, instead of working at one camp and doing this, like I've gone into multiple camps this summer and just get to come in and do the part that I love the most. I mean, I love working with the kids, but attendance and the, behavioral issues and stuff are things I don't have to worry about when I come as a performer, and
Yeah.
I still get to do the things I love. And then when I do this and the counselors come up, do the same thing. You guys had fun. Okay, counselors, take these things that I just taught you and go play with them with your, with your group later. Try to do it. In the last group I did, the one in Harrison, they were in between. I gave a water break. It was very hot out. So I did a water break. I put a dance party water break. We put on some music. Everyone's dancing, drinking water because we got to keep the excitement up. And there was literally groups of kids, super Simon Says-ing, in small groups practicing.
Aw,
For the next round, that when the
that's
song
cool.
ended, they were literally like, okay, we're ready to go.
Uh-huh.
And it was so cute. That was so fun. So
I love that. And you know what I love about what you just described is you really described, because a lot of people I don't understand how does Simon Says last 45 minutes, an hour, whatever it is, and I think you really described it well, is that you structure it in a way where it grows, similar to how you talked about the fire show. It grows. It goes, you begin it with an opening, you kind of get people involved in it, then you have the kids that get out. They're not just out and you're gone, you're goodbye. You have them kind of re-involved and get them to
oh
be able to
yeah,
participate
they
in it.
sit right there, and I rely on them. I'm like, judges, I can't see, like, are
Yeah.
these people out? And they're yelling at me, and they're interactive the whole time. Like
That's
nobody's
amazing.
nobody's sitting out being like, "Ugh," every
Yep.
now and again you get a kid, but then I kind of, this is the educator in me, I'll see that kid that's like too cool, and then you're like, oh, you know what? Can you be my special helper? Oh, they light up. That kid that is too cool. But I need you to help me over here because they're out and I'm like, okay, this group, I'm having trouble. Can you stand right here? Can you stand right here and just, I need you to help me watch these kids over here because I feel like maybe they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and they might not have gotten themselves out. And those kids that didn't want anything to do with this, that were checked out, they are like the best judges. Honestly, they are the best judges because they were like, oh, I'm on you. This is my job now, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch all of you. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I love Super Simon Says, and I think the other thing that I love, I mean, I love all of them, but I love stilt walking.
Talk
Just
about that a
being a
little bit.
different.
What is it? Is that just you walking around and being on two pegs? Is like what exactly is stilt walking?
Sure. So I do two different styles. I do pegs, which are like wooden blocks, like almost look like 2x4s. And I did those for 20 years. And then a number of years ago, I added on the drywall stilts, which I was kind of like, I'm not going to drywall. But they are so much better for so many things because I can stand still. Stilt
Mm,
walking, I often say, is like riding a bicycle. What happens if you stop moving on your bicycle? You fall
mm,
over.
mm,
So
mm,
stilt walking is kind of the same, especially on pegs. You need to make a tripod to not fall over.
mm,
On the dry walls, though, just like if you were putting up sheetrock in your house, you can just kind of stand there. And
mm,
so for a lot of gigs, that has really been a game changer.
mm,
It's especially when it's really hot out or you're just standing there taking photos. But I have, butterflies. I have a vampire event I do. I have a scarecrow. I have a sunflower farmer. I have like three
mm,
different butterflies, four different colorful butterflies, a rainbow butterfly, a blue purple butterfly, a monarch. I have a completely different rainbow butterfly. I do a lot of pride events, a
mm,
lot of festivals. I have like a jungle kind of Mother Earth creature that I have both for like the adult side. I did at a festival, where
mhm, mhm.
it was like an EDM festival. So, and it was really hot out. So it was a more, a
Risque.
risque, it wasn't in, I always, tits and bits always got to be covered. That's what I
Yes.
say, right? Like anything who knows where it's going to go. I need to make
Yeah.
sure I work with kids. There's nothing that's going to come out there that someone's going to be like, oh, that's too much, right? But I
Mhm,
have, a fairy that I work with the kids. I've been Tinkerbell. I have like a candy cane. I
mhm,
have, Mardi Gras, 4th of July, St. Patrick's Day,
mhm, mhm,
various holiday events.
mhm,
I have people call me all the time. They're like, hey, we have this event and we would like you to be, in medieval attire, right? And
mhm,
like Renaissance-y. I have a beautiful dress that I did that with like a little parasol.
mm.
All these things. I made a giant squid for a sea event. They're like, it's underwater, and I made a light up jellyfish, which is super cool with like a sparkly ball gown underneath. The
Yeah.
ball gown alone is pretty cool. Then you put the jellyfish on it. It's like super, super fun. I made a giant flower one time for a daffodil festival.
Hmm.
Um, And, I made a giant daffodil. And you could buy these things online. And sometimes I do, but sometimes I'm like, I want to make this.
Yeah.
And then I make this cool thing. And the cool thing about that is like, you're looking for a giant flower on stilts. There's about 7 companies I can point you to that do giant flowers on stilts. They all are made by the same girl and they're beautiful. They are beautiful flowers. Mine doesn't look like that because I made it myself and nobody has one that looks like mine. So, I do buy things sometimes, put different costumes together. I have so many different costumes that I've put together over the years of various things. I have like, Halloween, I have a devil and a skeleton and a scarecrow. And, one person hired me to be Frankenstein. And that was interesting. I had a giant mask on my head. So like,
Mrs. Stein?
yes, I'm a Stein, but that was Frankenstein. And I'm a female, but I wore the big baggy shirt. Nobody knew, nobody was any wiser. I couldn't, I didn't talk. There's lots of things I do. And one thing I often bring is a safety, which I know some people do or don't. I've been doing it for over 20 years, and I know a lot of people who've been doing it for over 20 years, and they're like, I can do it myself. And can I do it myself without someone? Absolutely. Absolutely, I can do it myself. Do I want to? Probably not. There's always at least one time during that entire, even if it's just helping me stand up, helping me sit down and taking photos. Yeah, an assistant, a safety, a handler, like when you're in a mascot, like sometimes it's hard to see. Sometimes there's cow poop or horse poop on the ground and I'm looking at the children, and like walking in the parade. So there's all different things. I bring a safety. They take photos for people. Also, people are afraid to give people their phones to take a photo, right? So they're all trying to take selfies. And I'm like, this person's with me. And I put them in a little hat, so they look like they're part of my costume. And, and then they're taking photos or gosh forbid, the hula hoop falls to the ground that I'm hula hooping, which, it doesn't happen too often, but maybe someone bumped into me, and wasn't paying attention and it falls. How am I getting that from down on the ground? Now, I know there are stilt walkers that can lay down and get up. I am not one of those.
No, I don't know how they do that.
Yeah, the ones in Africa, they're amazing. Like they're so cool and they're jumping, and that's not really what I do, but I've been doing it over 20 years. I always bring a safety. And the people I know that don't bring safeties, let me tell you, there's never been a gig where one of them that didn't have a safety at some point didn't ask my safety to hold their water, take a picture, grab that. I don't want to break character.
Pair of hands is always helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have wings in every color. Like, I don't want to break character, right? Someone's coming over to ask me a question, wants my card or whatever card for the company I'm working with. They want to take a picture. They're handing me the check that they owe me, right? And the person happens to see me and they're like, oh, I don't want to forget because there's like a couple hundred people here, right? I don't have to break character and do this. My safety is there for so many reasons. So one of the things I often have when I quote a price is I have another person that is getting paid for they're the site manager, they're setup, they're, the coordinator, I'm getting ready in costume and they're out there making sure everything's good. So that's just something I know when people look at quotes, sometimes they're like, why is there another person here? And I'm like, well, they do so many things.
Sure,
yeah.
Absolutely.
And you never know.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you, when it comes to actually like the function of doing stilt walking, is there a certain length of time that's good? Is something like that time that you can do? Is that something to keep in mind when somebody's looking for a stilt walker? They're like, hey, I got this parade for the next 2.5 hours. Is that, you can go just chill for 2.5 hours? I know there's some people that can, but what is your limitations?
So I think the longest I've ever been on stilts fairly consecutively was like 3 to 4 hours. I do take breaks in between water, sit down for a moment, but I don't necessarily get off the stilts. That's not something I do all the time. I also do the higher the end of the event, it seems the less time I'm on stilts. It's like I'll make more money for being on stilts for 20 minutes in an hour than I will for like a straight hour. For whatever reason that is, that's just the way the corporate events work. But I will go out there, especially with the drywalls, now that I don't have to be walking. If it's really hot out, I can just kind of stand. I can set myself in the shades. I don't mind. I love being on stilts. Comparative to spinning things, it's even if I'm doing wings, it's a lot less on my body as a toll. So like spinning for 2 hours is a lot more taxing on my body than stilt walking with wings for 2 hours. So I do all different things. I always ask for a break in between. If they want 2 hours, I'm like, great, I can give you 2 hours. But I need to take a break, a water break. And everyone's pretty understanding of that. If it's really hot, I need like AC or something to like cool down, get a sip of water, step away. Sometimes I don't really need much but I always work it into my thing.
Mhm.
Sometimes I'll just do an hour. I do a lot of times I'll just do an hour.
Mhm.
I've also had people be like, "Hey, I know we only booked you for an hour. Here's X amount of dollars. Can you stay like another
Oh,
hour?" And
that's
I'm
a
like,
good deal.
"Absolutely. I'm gonna go chill over there for 10 minutes and get some water and some nourishment, and then, I'll come on out." Because they're like, "Well, all these people still haven't taken photos with you, and they want
Mhm.
to. How can we
Waste
make this
time.
happen?" Right? Because I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, because otherwise you stand there all day. Everyone wants pictures
Mhm.
with a stilt walker.
Mhm.
Um, so, you
People love
know,
still walkers, yeah.
oh, I mean,
Except for that one client who
except for that
didn't.
one guy. I mean, but by the end we were friendly. He didn't really want to come too close. Like, he's definitely was like a good like 4 feet in front of me when we took the
Mhm.
photo. And as soon as the photo was done, he was like, "I'm gonna go back
Out.
across the room." Yeah. But like, it's for the
Uh,
most part, I'll work with whoever is hiring me.
mhm.
I will do like small breaks. A lot of
Sure.
times they have stilt walking in the beginning, and a lot of clients will actually hire me for multiple things.
Mhm.
I usually give package deals if they're like, "Hey, we want you to do stilt
The
walking,
benefit
and
of
then we
still,
want
yeah.
you to do, yeah, fire performing, or we do some bubbles and then LED, or, we're gonna have you do, games to start, and then we're gonna do bubbles, and then can you end with a fire show?" I mean, I've done all different
Mhm.
things. I'm already
Mhm.
there.
Mhm.
So I often will work with people. Plus, in this day and age, money, everyone's struggling with money. So, we aim
Being
for what we
flexible.
want, and then I just work with
Talk
people.
about being flexible a lot today. You're talking
Yeah,
about your ability to do different things. I mean, so one thing I just want to touch on. There's two more things, two more skill sets, and I'm sure there are many more skill sets you have in
yeah,
there. Two, I just want to kind of briefly talk about. You mentioned miming. You mentioned
yeah,
doing mime stuff. I've been asked about mimes. We've booked mimes. Obviously, we've had you doing mimes for us before. What is that entail? I mean, are you literally not talking? Is that a real thing? You sit there and perform for not talking? Are you doing a show? Is it mostly ambiance? Like, what does
yeah.
a mime do?
Sure. So, believe it or not, I will not talk for the entire time. A lot of my friends and family don't believe that that's a thing that can happen.
You
I
gotta put the
once was
makeup
in
on
a,
and you just shut up. Stop
yeah,
talking.
I was once in a show that I did for many years, and I would do a hula hoop act in the show
Mhm.
that they would hire me. And one of the years they donated or don't dedicated the program. They would dedicate it to a different person every year, and they dedicated to
Mhm.
Lady Blaze to me. And under
Oh.
it just said a great talker. This program is dedicated to Lady Blaze, a quote, great talker, because I'm always like chatting and talking and I get really excited. So, yes, when I'm a mime, I don't talk.
Hmm.
I feel like when I drive in my car, like, blah, 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 so I just get it out of my
Get it out.
system. Yeah. And I don't do that to them, but I put
Mhm.
on a full face. I have the long sleeve, so it's not my favorite in the hot air. I love to find that little shady spot, but I do the
Mhm.
whole mime. I have two different mime looks. I guess one is
Mhm.
more of the French mime, and one is a
Mhm.
more
Mime.
clowny mime, I
Mm.
guess, more clownish.
Mhm.
Because I do clown stuff. I've been a clown on stilts, and so that character, that costume, kind of goes between the clown and the mime.
Mm.
But I go, and every time I do it, it's different.
Mm.
Um, I've done a kids party, and
Mhm.
I kind of just was there, and the kids were doing stuff, and they were interacting with me, and I'd be like, just like trying to talk to them, but not
Mhm.
talking. And they'd be like, "Why don't you talk?" I'm like, and
So your
they're just
miming
like,
is
"No,
more
you're not
like
talking." Right? Just like the princesses when they're trying to ask me about like the other things, and you're dressed up
Mhm.
as a princess, and you're like,
Mhm. Mhm.
"Oh, I'm just Elsa. Like, I don't know where Olaf is right now. It's too hot for him." And he would melt if he came to your birthday
Oh.
party in the middle of the summer, right? But Olaf's at home, right? You're just kind of like whatever the kids want. So for that one, I was kind of there around. And then like the kids would get bored, and then they'd
Mm.
wander around, and like I was talking about, I would just do various things like pet the dog and blow up balloons, and really like watering the flowers when there's nothing to do. I just walk around watering, filling up the watering can. Right, not your watering can, right? So like whatever you're doing, the event that you had me at,
Mhm.
it was like, I think he was the gentleman was turning 90, I believe, and he
Mhm.
was very prestigious person with lots and lots of famous people there. I joked to my friends afterwards that it was probably good that I couldn't talk because there was zero fangirling allowed. Not that I would have done that. I'm a professional, of course, but like, and I'm just talking to these people, and they were just kind of like, what is this person doing? But then they would see me, doing whatever, and
Mhm.
and they would kind of come up and talk to me, and then I walked around to every group of people that was doing hors d'oeuvres, and and then when they did the speeches, I was just kind of like in the background, like, like they laughed and everyone's like, ha ha ha,
Mhm.
and I'm like,
Yep, yep, yep.
real knee slapper, like, and I just would engage with whatever's going on.
Mhm.
A lot of the acting I've done, mime comes from pantomime. A lot of people don't
Mhm.
know that. I'm sure you do, but a lot of people from pantomime, and a lot of like when I do acting and performing, a lot of the improv work we do comes
Mhm.
from just like spatial awareness
Mhm.
and using the space work, I guess is a lot of people call it. So you have space work with the improv, right? I think a lot of people are familiar with the energy ball, right? You're like, I got an energy ball, right? And it's here. Oh, it's a very heavy energy ball. Oh, it's very light. Oh, come back, right? And then I'll take the energy ball sometimes if people really aren't, and I'll just kind of hand them the energy ball, right? And then they're like, and I'll try to help them and, try to really interact with them.
Mhm.
I find like the energy ball is like everyone at some point in their life has done the energy, whether they believe it or not, the energy ball. And then I just kind of work with them and look what's
Mhm.
around and then take what's there and then work with it. And like maybe I
Mhm.
might pick up something that's real and tangible, but then I'm going to use it to do something else, right? Like if I
Mhm.
went over to the flowers, there were flowers, some there weren't flowers, but some of those were, right? And then I'm smelling them, and then I'm picking my fake flower, right, and smelling it and stuff like that. So just
Mhm.
kind of utilize what's around. Other couple mime gigs where I just kind of stood there and well, not stood there, but like I was just in a space and people were just kind of like, okay, and they just kind of watched, and and it was a recycling group of people, so it wasn't
Mhm.
always like different people, some people. So with that was said, I did a lot of the same stuff, the same kind
Mhm.
of gags over and over again, right? I'm blowing up
Mhm.
all the kids balloons when they come over and handing them the balloons and then trying not to blow away, and then the kids are like, this, some of the kids
Mhm.
get really into it, right? And then they want to blow up balloons with me. That's just one of various things,
Mhm.
and then the kids were like both blowing up balloons, and I'm like, and then I'm like, yours is this. And I'm like, and then we're like challenging who's going to blow up the biggest balloon. And I blow mine up
Mhm.
pops, and then the kids laughing and,
Hmm.
and then they take some photos and the parents eventually are like, come on, let's go on to the next thing. Right. And then the kids are like being really silly. So I love miming. I honestly wish I could mime more.
Mhm.
But I don't talk. And the hardest thing about miming is having a full face of makeup
Mhm.
when it's hot out.
That makes sense. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
everything else is great. And then again, you talk to other clowns and people, and I think people don't always want to put everything out online, but I feel like at least at this point, if you talk to someone and you're like, "Hey, I'm already doing this, right?
Mhm.
And I'm really trying to find a better solution, a better makeup, a better way to do this, a better bubble solution."
Mhm.
People might not be like, "I want to give you my thing," but like, "Hey, this is where I got this," or "Where this is where I
Mhm.
found this," or I use this one. They're not going to tell you how
Mhm.
to apply it. They're not going to tell you whatever they use, but like people will work with you. So
Mhm.
I do love miming. It's super fun. I think it's great for like ambient events where I'm just kind of like there. I haven't
Mhm.
specifically done like a mime show where I was on stage
Mhm.
in front of everyone as of yet.
Mhm.
I think that'd be super fun, and I would. But I feel like I do little mini shows, and I kind of
Mhm.
just like wander around the same way like a strolling magician would come
Mhm.
up to a table and do a trick and another trick, and then they might go to the other group and do the same couple of tricks, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
I feel like the mime is often like that kind of thing, or like I said, I'm
Mhm.
just kind of there and interacting. I'm kind of in a space, and then the people walk by me.
Mhm. Mhm. That's
Um,
nice. Awesome.
it's kind of like disco ball head too. Is kind of like I don't talk, just kind
Well, I
of
was gonna
dance.
Disco Ball Head is interesting. I mean, that's definitely a character actor kind of a feel, and that's
Yeah,
cool costume. And for everybody that doesn't know, that's literally a mirror costume with a
yeah, disco
giant
ball
head.
head. Yeah.
Yep, that's literally what it is. And I wanted to just touch on the last thing you mentioned at the beginning, which is skating. You actually
Oh
do
yeah,
that as a skill set. What does that mean? I mean, are you
yeah,
just are you just rolling in literally
yeah.
in
It
like skates,
depends.
or like is there more to it?
So there's various aspects. Like my favorite roller skating is honestly in parades. I
Okay.
got some wings, like big, they're called Isis wings.
Mhm.
But they're like the Egyptian goddess Isis. And
Mhm. Mhm.
they're just big, beautiful wings. I do other things. I'll hula hoop on roller skates. I love parades though, because it's just like lots of people and you're just skating down the street.
So it's kind
super
of like
fun. Great.
still walking. It's another
Yeah, it's
version of
like
still
still
walking.
walking. Yeah,
All
but
right.
also I'll go places and I'll roller skate out in the crowd. They'll hire me, and
Mhm.
I'm literally on the dance floor on roller skates, kind of dancing around, skating
Hmm.
around. Sometimes I have an LED prop on the roller
Mm.
skates, and I'm doing various things, and I'm dancing with the people, and sometimes like everyone separates, and then now I'm in the middle, kind of doing some dance moves and doing
Mhm.
some different steps and spinning around. And like there's lots of cool roller skating steps that you can do, and there's like so much jam skating. People are most impressed with the really boring, simple stuff. Same with like fire spinning. You could do these amazing tricks, and then you do a backbend buzzsaw where it's like this and spinning in front of you towards you, and people lose their mind. And it's like one of the easiest tricks. And if you're a flow
Mhm.
artist, you're like, ah, say backbend buzzsaw, right? But then people who've never seen it are like, oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Yep.
And I feel like roller skating, I can do all these cool little tricks, but they just want to see me spin in a circle and like kind of step around and skate backwards and spin in a
Mhm.
circle. Like I can do all these cool little step things and step and move and shuffles, and they're like,
Mhm.
we just want to see you skate in a circle. So, you
Yep.
know, that like I said, I like parades because there's a little bit more to do with them. But a lot of times
Mhm.
I've done various events. I've done like bat mitzvahs. I've done
Hmm.
various parties, backyard parties. Um, I've done
So
some corporate events.
can you do it on grass or is it just on concrete?
No, you need like a platform on
Okay.
grass. And I do make them, and I've looked into them also. Like all these things cost money.
Sure.
Um, so I feel like if I got the right gig that wanted roller skates on grass, then I would work in needing the flooring into the budget, and then you
Sure.
have it. Usually it's often inside, like on a dance floor or
Okay.
in parades. Um, but I'll do it. I did a Mardi Gras event once, and there was a Mardi Gras band playing,
Mhm.
and they hired me on roller skates, and they're like, okay, you're gonna dance on the floor with the people who are dancing the Mardi Gras band.
Mhm.
Great, awesome. And I'd already been on stilts earlier, so I met all the people, and then I was same costume, just off stilts on roller skating, and nobody wanted to dance. Everyone was eating,
Oh.
and it was just the band and me. And so I'm literally just spinning in circles, and I'm dancing on this like normal, like you would think like a wedding or,
Mhm.
party dance floor, the wooden dance floor. And I was just skating around, and eventually little kids ended up coming and skating with me. And then we just literally played Ring Around the Rosie like a million times. I didn't fall down, but they would fall down, because
Ah.
that's what that was who was there. And I was dancing. The kids want to interact with me. And they were the ones that want to interact with me. So I
Sure.
interacted with them, and I was interacting with them differently than perhaps if adults were out there,
Mhm.
and when I was finished, I said to the people, I said, I had a lot of fun. Thank you for having me. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I was supposed to dance with all the guests, and only the kids came out, and they were like, we didn't know what we would do with the kids. The kids weren't supposed to come, and they ended up coming, and we didn't know there was kids coming to the event. And we were really
Oh.
concerned actually mostly about these children being there. It was
Mhm.
a country club, and I guess
Mhm.
they thought because it was evening it would just be adults, but
Mhm.
adults bring their kids to things. And some of them were really little. And so the fact that I ended up I think I did like a half hour stilt walking, like a half hour roller skating. The fact that 20 something minutes of that roller skating was me interacting with like these four children for 20
Mhm.
minutes, which again, as an educator, I'm like, it's nothing. I can come up with games like that. And,
Yeah.
I got games in my pocket and camp songs and all the things in my pockets. I could just pull them
Sure.
out. And I was a little like, oh no, are they going to be like, I was just playing with the kids, and they were like, we're so happy. Like, we don't
Oh,
even
good.
care that nobody was dancing because the kids were running in circles when I wasn't like, when I was changing. I guess the kids were
Yeah.
just like doing laps, and the staff
Yeah.
was just like, oh my gosh.
Oh,
And then I came out with the roller skates, and all the kids just flocked to me, and they were like, if
this is fun.
even just to have you entertain the children, like that was worth it for us. And that was in the
Mhm.
Poconos in a snowstorm. I drove 3 hours. It was
Oh
like,
boy.
yeah, I drive all over the place. Like anywhere between 45 minutes and like 3.5 hours is often the time frame, but sometimes more. I do think
Mhm.
I'm going to Maryland next week to do some stuff from Connecticut. So
That's amazing.
yeah.
You know what? So you mentioned something that I think is really important to just touch on is that how do you manage doing such different events from doing a kid's birthday party to doing a high-end corporate event to doing a wedding? They're obviously different environments. What do you do differently or how do you act differently in those environments?
I guess first off, professionalism. I mean, I'm always professional, but
Mhm.
when I'm coming into a camp, I'm like, "Hey guys, how you doing? I'm so excited to be here." Now I've done the Simon Says for You a few years. I came in
Mhm.
there like, "It's the Simon Says lady." They were losing their minds. I was like, "Hi guys, how you doing? oh, you guys excited? Let's get this excited, right? Like, oh, we're pumping it up. We're going to do Super Simon Says. Oh, you guys excited for bubbles? Oh my God, we're going to have the best bubble show for you. I'm doing a backyard party for someone's mom. He's having a birthday party, someone's grandparents. Hey guys, how are you doing? We're doing a fire show today. You guys excited? Right? Like, oh, we're going to have such a good time. Don't be afraid to make some noise, right? Where the kids, I'm like, let me hear you want to make some noise, right? The adults, I'm like, all right, we're going to make some, if you see something you like, I want to hear you guys clap. Can you guys show me what that sounds like, right? And I might do similar for the kids. Corporate event, and I'm coming in. It's often I don't talk. Like I just do, hi, I'm Lady Blaze. Thank you for having me. Do my act. Thank you so much. I'm Lady Blaze, LB Spinners Arts, or Lady Blaze, Magical Memories Entertainment, whatever the company I'm working for. And I'll still engage with the customers, but it's going to be a little different. The costume is going to be different. Sometimes you can't talk to certain people, right? They're like, we don't want you talking. You are just there. I did one gig for another client or another company who's awesome and makes amazing stilt costumes. And I was a giant octopus. And when they told me to come down to the first event, I was at an aquarium and I was a giant octopus. And they told me for the first 20 minutes, I was not allowed to talk. I was just an octopus. And I think, I've seen people do it, but I was an octopus.
You felt it.
I was an octopus. But they told me not to talk. That was my direction. Do not talk. Octopuses do not talk. Octopi do not talk. And there was a security guard who just was talking to me and I just wasn't talking. And there was, again, a safety, a handler, whoever site manager were there. So if people were really trying to talk to me, they'd be like, oh, she's an octopus. She doesn't speak. She doesn't talk, right? So there was someone there to advocate for me. And this guy was so mad I wouldn't talk to him. But it was a corporate high-end event. I was getting paid a lot of money. I could only imagine the amount of money these people paid to hire me and like an aerialist and another performer and a juggler and a magician. And like, there was lots of people. And like go-go dancers. And so the first hour or first 20 minutes, whatever, a half hour, I didn't talk. And I just blub, 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 and I just was the thing. And I saw videos and I was like, oh, that was a good looking octopus, right? Like, and my face is like this big. That's all you can see. Like everything else is like octopus. And I'm just like doing the things. And they were very upset. These people were like, why won't she talk to us? That when I came out for the second half, which was like the dance party, the first part was like cocktail hour. I came out for the second party. It was a holiday event. And I said, can I talk? Can I talk? I'll still be an octopus, but can I interact with the guest? Is that okay with you? Right? Because it's a corporate event and you do exactly what they say at the corporate event and you do nothing else of what they say at the corporate event. So I did it and they said, oh yeah, you can talk. So I came out and I see the guy and I was like, hi. And he's like, she does talk. He was losing his mind. Right. And then these other people who also didn't talk to me, they're like, oh, we didn't get your picture. Can we have a picture? And I was like, sure. They're like, oh, she talks. So then it was a different feel. People were like, can I dance with the octopus? Can I dance with you? Can we do this?
You can dance with 8 people simultaneously.
They were like holding the different tentacles, drywalls all the way for that one because there was people in all different directions. But like when I was just this ambient, not talking, I was just there, right? And people were taking pictures. But when I got out on the dance floor and people said stuff to me and I could actually engage them, it totally changed the feel. People were coming out and dancing, they were laughing, they were making jokes, really good at bad jokes, especially when I don't plan them. They just kind of come off the fly. I'm really good at them. They just get better or worse the longer the day goes on. I don't know. But like it was such a different feel at this corporate event. It like made everyone feel a little like looser and just like more relaxed and everyone was laughing. And they were doing these things beforehand. But as a octopus, I was just kind of there, right? And people were like, okay. And everyone was very like prim and proper in these dress ball gowns that like probably cost as much as my rent. And they looked gorgeous. And everyone looked amazing and, whatever. But everyone was like, okay, we're going to take a picture. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. I don't know if they actually sounded like that, but you know what I mean? They were very like, we're going to go get our cocktails. But then on the dance floor, they were like, okay, we're going to do this. And I was like, do you guys want to dance with me? And they were like, oh, yeah, let's dance, right? Like they went from like, okay, we're going to do this. Yeah, I want to dance with you. Okay, let's dance. And like, their whole demeanor changed because I was able to engage in that different way. And that happens with a lot of things. So it's like, I like to make, do my research. I've been a couple mascots. I don't own mascots. I often I've been Minnie Mouse. I've been Paw Patrol. I've been a bunch of different other characters. Buzz Armstrong and Woody and from Toy Story and a bunch of other things I've done. I've been an Easter Bunny. And again, every place is different, and every interaction is different. And like, I don't really watch Paw Patrol. I don't have kids of my own, right? I know what that is. Well, I had to go be one of the Paw Patrols, so I spent like a good couple hours watching Paw Patrols. So even though I couldn't
It was just
talk,
an excuse. It was just an
yeah,
excuse. Don't,
yeah.
don't don't tell you wanted to watch it.
But a mascot is just pantomime. The
Yes.
mascot is just a mime. You can't talk, and you only have your hands to express, and you don't even have your face really. So it's just your hands, like funny, and but I would do my research. So just like any of these other things, like I knew it was going to be an octopus. I was like, cool. I know what an octopus looks like. I know what an octopus does. Okay, I'm going to go watch a bunch of octopus videos just to like,
Get yourself
make
in the set.
yeah, so I mean, I think that's part of it. Like, what kind of event is it? What place am I going to? Right? Like, is this a music festival? Is this a backyard party? Is it a kids' party? Is it, a bunch of grown adults? Like, if I walk in, I did a fire show on the 4th of July. And I walked in my 4th of July fire attire because it's hard to find things that are fire safe. And they just said, we want this fire show. Guy sought me out. Cool, 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 down the water. I'm like, this is great. And my 4th of July fire attire is cute. It's not like super sexy, but it's like I got stars and stripes and, and I look nice. But I showed up and it was a white party. I don't know if you know what those are. Everyone's dressed in white. Everyone is of different races, but everyone is dressed in white and very formal. And here I show up in my I got like pigtail braids because it's fire, so my hair is down. And when I'm driving, I like pigtails because I can put my head back. When you have a ponytail, it sticks in the back. I don't know if guys know this, but so if I'm driving 3.5 hours to a show, I do the pigtail braids because they're out of the way, they're cute, and they're not in my way when I'm driving. And I'm wearing what I think is adorable, and I've had lots of compliments. But I show up to this party, and everyone is in like super designer white attire, dresses, skirts, shirts. Like I felt like I was in a country club. Did they tell me that I was going to be in a place where there was a theme of all white and everyone was going to be in ball gowns at a 4th of July backyard barbecue? No, I did not. And I felt a little underdressed, and someone saw me and actually made a comment before they knew I was the fire performer. And like, I could hear them being like, who is this girl? Like, what is she wearing? And they were just like, and I wish that I had asked more questions, right? Never assume, always be curious. And I wish I had asked more questions. Like, what kind of party is this? Because all the backyard barbecues I've done on 4th of July are always backyard barbecues on 4th of July, and everyone's wearing, maybe a polo shirt, but, fireworks, whatever. And this was like, they were catered and there was a full bar, and they didn't tell me that. And everyone was kind of like looking at me, and I was just like, oh my gosh. And then my safety, I usually tell them to wear all black. Right, either be in the attire that kind of matches or just stage blacks, right? So you're kind of fade into the background, right? So now she's in all black and an all white party. I'm in stars and stripes and so many colors at this all white party. And it was a little odd going in there and use the bathroom and setting up. But then once I started and they realized that I wasn't a guest and I was doing the fire show, they loved it. They thought it was great. But thinking back later, talking to my safety, she was like, I wish I had worn something different. I'm like, I wish I had worn something different. So, I made do, it worked, and I made that comment, I wish I had realized it was such a high-end party. I would have maybe chose a different costume. And he was like, oh, I guess I should have told you that. I'm like, yeah, but so that kind of thing is like, okay, clearly
lesson learned. You learn, you learn what to do next time. Make sure that you ask the right questions.
And I mean, they had a great time. Everyone loved it. It was awesome. But that kind of thing. It's like, I'm going to pivot on the spot, right? I had this whole act that I was going to do, and then they didn't want that. They wanted something else. And then he wanted to add 10 minutes to the show, but he didn't tell me that till I was there, and I didn't have all my extra props that are in my garage, right? So I was like, well, this is what I have. And I pivoted and I added some stuff. And if I knew it was a longer show, which I originally offered him, and he was like, oh, I can't afford it, then he wanted the longer show. But I was like, there's about 4 acts at home that I would have added to a 30-minute show to make it a bigger show. But we didn't know. So,
Mhm.
I pivoted, I made it work.
Mhm.
And sometimes customers don't, the point of that is sometimes customers have no idea what they're actually asking or
Mhm.
buying,
Mhm.
purchasing, they're like, I want this. And they think they know, they
Yeah.
don't. So I like videos are helpful, photos helpful.
Mhm.
Hopefully this video is helpful. Um,
Mhm.
and I pivot, I think just lots of experience.
Mhm.
I say that sometimes, I have over 20 years experience. Yes, I can spin things. Yes, I can do various things, but also with that is like, lesson learned, right? Like,
Mhm. Mhm.
bring extra props because you don't know, bring extra fuel,
Mhm.
bring extra bubbles. That's one thing. I'm like,
Real
oh, I
thing.
probably only need 2 buckets of bubbles. But then you have that one kid that goes and knocks over all the bubbles like within the first 5 minutes because he's like a 3-year-old and he doesn't get it.
Could
Right.
be
And now
tricks
you
on
have,
it. Could
yeah,
be tricks.
or they step, I think it's step in mud and then step in the bubbles the other day. Parent wasn't paying attention. Oh, they
Sure.
were more upset that the kid was just covered head to toe in mud and leaves and grass. But now all the kids are freaking out that there's like a 2-year-old stomping in the bubbles, right? And there's
Ah.
stuff in it. And I was like, that's
Mhm.
okay. Dumped it out. I brought more extra bubbles just for this reason, right?
Yep.
And then it doesn't happen, I go home with more bubbles, right? And then I play with bubbles in my backyard. But just pivoting, looking, again, as I said, like never assuming, always asking questions. And then I feel like giving people things up front. I never say, hey, this is the quote, this is what it is. I say, hey, this is what I'm going to give you.
Mhm.
Now let's talk budget, right? I'm not going to be like, oh, it's this much money, take it or
Mhm.
leave it. I'm
Mhm.
like, hey, you're going to get this if you want this, or this, and this if you
Options.
want this. And then let's pick the best package that works for you, right?
Mhm.
You think you want a 2-hour performance till you see the price tag and realize what it costs, or if it's a 2-hour show, I'm taking breaks, or, and then you're like,
Mhm.
ooh, maybe 45 minutes is actually better. Cause I'm like, hey, how old are the kids that are watching this 2-hour show?
Sure.
Are they going to sit still for a 2-hour show? Probably not, unless there's like other things going on, right? And they can come back and forth. And then, like, would
Mhm.
I like to get paid for a 2-hour show? Do they have the budget for the 2-hour show? Maybe.
Sure.
But is that what their event really needs? Maybe
Mhm.
not. So then I'm going to work with them. And some people are like, well, you could have had all that money. I said, yeah, but I'd rather them have a 45-minute
Forward.
show where everyone's like, that was amazing, than an
Mhm.
hour, 2-hour show. And then an hour and 20 minutes in, everyone is left because they want
Mhm.
to go see something else. And
Mhm.
I'm still doing fire. And the way my show is, it builds. So now 2 hours in, that's where the fire breathing's happening and there's
Mhm.
nobody there. So I will work with people that are like, they think they have this idea what they want. And I
Mhm.
say, I would happy to do that, but these are some things to consider. And
Mhm.
I think that also is like, you get someone who's new to performing and they're going to be like, it's this, or I'm going to give you an hour fire show, but they only have enough fire props to do
Mhm.
20 minutes. They're
Mhm.
not going to feel that. And now they're repeating fire props. And then you get someone that's like, oh, I already had a fire show. It wasn't very great. And I'm like,
Mhm. Mhm.
well, how many props did they do? Oh, they
Mhm.
they spun the balls on the circle for about 20 minutes and then they spun some other stuff and then that was and then they spun the thing like I'm not saying that anyone's really doing that, but there are some people and it's different. Hey, I just started spinning fire. My friend's having a party. Hire me in your backyard because I'm learning. We all have to
Mhm.
start somewhere.
Mhm.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but also
Mhm.
knowing like don't offer an hour-long show if you
There
could
are
really only
limitations.
film a 15. Like I used to not be able to offer a full half-hour 45-minute LED show, not
Mhm.
because I couldn't do it, I just didn't have enough LED props. I
Mhm.
had to build that up. Same with the fire. It's like, oh, I know how to do all these things, but you still have to acquire the props. And I think that's important also. It's like
Mhm.
not just
Mhm.
having the props, knowing how to use them, but not just
Mhm.
knowing how to use them, having them, being able to build a show. I like to be flexible and I do different songs because that's just what my life is. I'm doing a
Mhm.
kids party. It's going to be a bunch of kids songs. I'm doing an adult party. It's going to be different songs. I did a 13-minute fire show the other day. It was a town over. So, and it was like 2 days before and they were like, can you give me a discount? And I was like, oh, well, I had done 2 parades that day. I did two
Mhm.
parades on stilts. And then they were like, can you do a fire show a little later? And they didn't really have a big budget. And I was like, I'll work with you. I'll do 13 minutes, right? Because they
Very
wanted more than
specific
10.
number.
Well, they couldn't afford the 15-minute show. And they didn't
Ah.
want 10 minutes. So we kind of split the difference and I did a 13-minute show. What did that include? I had to stop some of my props a little early. I didn't let them
Mhm.
burn to the end. I put them out, then moved on to
Mhm.
something else. But the mom liked these various artists that I had never heard of in my life. And they were like, I was like, do you have music recommendations? Because I always ask. If they don't know, I'll do it. But I'm like, oh, do you have songs that they like? And
Mhm.
she likes some artists. I'd never heard of them. So I looked online and I was like, oh, these songs are really bad. And I found one song that it was just very slow and not fire. They weren't bad. I shouldn't say they were bad, but like for fire performing,
Yes,
they were
they
so
weren't
slow and
conducive to fire.
depressing.
Sure.
Yeah. Or there was a wedding I did and she really liked Taylor Swift. And I'm not a Swiftie, but nothing against Taylor Swift. All her songs about breakups. Right? Like every song I list, she gave me like 10 songs and like a list of like 20 songs, and like 10 of them were Taylor Swift, and they were all breakup songs at a wedding.
Mm,
And I
mm,
was like, I can't do this.
yeah,
Right? Like this is not,
doesn't feel right.
it doesn't feel right, right? Like I was like, I'll do a Swiftie song, but like this doesn't feel appropriate.
Sure.
And then she also wanted like Elvis, I can't help falling in love with you. And I was
Mhm.
like, so what I do, UB40, right? Can't help falling like
Oh
all this
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah.
So I was like, she likes these songs. I found a remix. She wanted a
Yeah.
Taylor
All
Swift
right.
song. I don't remember what, but I found some remix that didn't say the part where she talks about breaking up with the guy and how like, and I was like, okay, she
Okay.
wants this. How do I make this work?
Make it
Okay, I'm
work.
gonna find a bunch of remixes and find, okay, one song by this artist that's like really upbeat and I can make it work. Maybe it's a little
Mm-hmm.
bit slow, but I'm gonna do fans to it because I can go slow. And I think doing that and listening to all different types of music at different events has really made it easier for me to like transfer between different things. Like I said, I've
Sure.
gone with a playlist and then they go, oh, we're gonna actually have our dad like
What is that?
DJ, and
Oh.
he's learning to DJ. That happened once. They're like, actually my dad's gonna DJ. I was like, your dad's DJ? And they're like, yeah, you got a deck set up. I told him he could DJ. I had no idea what this guy was playing, and he was all over the place. Like one song was
Uh,
EDM, then it was a rock song. I was like, oh, I know this. Then he went country, and I'm like, I don't know this song, but I'm still spinning, right? And then he's like doing some rap stuff, and I'm like trying to do
mhm.
like a really dance, and I was just like, this guy is all over the place. I'm just gonna do my thing. And when I do my show with my own music, it's like song ends, next prop,
Prop ends. Yeah.
right? Or like the prop goes out, next song, right? So it's like this,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm just dancing to someone else. I'm like, all right, next prop, we'll just keep going. And
Yeah.
I've done different events, where I did a Sweet 16 where I didn't realize they just wanted me for the photos, for the influencer
Mm-hmm.
photos. That was an
Mm-hmm.
interesting one. And I showed up and they hired me for like a 45-minute show.
Mm-hmm.
I think they watched, and there was only a dozen of them there. It was like a dozen girls, and they were all taking
Mm.
photos. They had all these cool like photo ops. And then I was doing fire, and they'd come over and take a couple photos, not watching me, like with their back to me, with me in the background. And then they'd leave. And then I'd look at, the person who hired me, and they're like, just keep going. And I'm like, okay. So I'd say for the 45 minutes, I think maybe 20 of that minutes, maybe 20 minutes, I'm being generous, that they were actually there watching me.
Mm.
And I was just joking to my safety. It's like I'm spinning in my backyard, except they're paying me a lot of money to be here,
Yeah.
And then when I finished, they got their like two really good shots. I did like 12 things, but like they got their two good shots and they were so happy. They were like, thank you. This was great. We loved it. Thank
Mm-hmm.
you. And I'm thinking, like, you didn't even watch me at
Ah,
all. The
they got
DJ
their
had a great
picture.
time.
That's what they
They
wanted.
got their
So
pictures and they were ecstatic and they were like, this was great. And that was like a very high end gig. I was out in Long
sure.
Island and they were ecstatic and I literally performed for the DJ and myself, like,
There you go.
and that's and then I'm like, do I keep going? I'm like, well, they paid me, nobody's here, but I still spun every prop that I had set up because
That's good.
that's what they paid me for.
That's exactly right. 100%.
Yeah,
I agree with you. So,
yeah.
okay. So you've mentioned so many different stories about different
Yeah.
events and different things you've been in. Thinking back on your career, is there one event or situation that stands out to you the most?
Oh my gosh. There's so many things. A lot of those festivals that although I wasn't performing directly, they didn't know, like I was saying, Tom Petty and the Allman Brothers, those were really cool. Like I love Whipping Post by Allman Brothers, if you know that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I just happened to be fire hooping right as that song started. And I love that song. My dad's favorite band is Allman Brothers. My sister's name is Jessica, named after the Allman Brothers song, Jessica that has no words. Like, and so I grew up on the Allman Brothers. I was super excited to be there. And Whipping Post came on, and I love that song. And there's like hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people at this event. They don't
Mm-hmm.
hold it so much anymore, but it was held on a ski resort, and there's just the whole mountain of the ski resort is filled. There's like a few thousand people, and it was
Oh
just a
wow.
lot of people. Maybe more than a few thousand. There's probably like 30,000 people. There was a lot of people because I'm thinking of another one that had 20,000. They had more than that. Anyway, I'm doing the whipping post, right? And they're doing it live. And like the final part was like, to the whip. I threw my hoop, probably the farthest I've ever thrown my hoop in the air on this mountain, right? So like the hoop is like so high in the air that I'm like, oh my God, what did I just do? Right. But I'm like in the song and I love the song. And I throw it up in the air so high. And then he ends the to the whipping post and I grabbed my hoop and jumped in it. And the crowd, that was in front of me just erupted in cheer. And like you could just, I think they could just tell how happy I was to be like performing.
Oh.
And sometimes I do an event called Strange Creek in Wormtown for over a decade. Um and I don't always enjoy the people that perform that we're dancing to, but I
Mm,
love the people I get to perform with. And sometimes
mm,
that's just as special. It's like, okay, this was a really bad song I just spun to, or they're talking, thanking their people for being there, and
sure.
you're spinning to them talking. But sometimes just the experience is just who I get to perform with. I have a couple
Mhm,
friends that they're like, oh, we need a fire breather. Can you come up? I was out in oh my gosh, what's Martha's Vineyard? Never been there
mm.
before for a Hanukkah event because my friend invited me. But
Oh,
like on
lovely.
the trip, we got to see all the little houses and all the different things.
Sure.
I really love stilt walking in parades. Some of these high end events, the octopus that I was talking about was such a
Mhm,
cool gig. When you do these high end gigs, sometimes they're very neat. There's been very famous people at some of them that I sign NDAs that I cannot talk
sure.
about, and those were super neat. I love roller skating. I love stilts. Uh,
Mhm,
this, when people are happy and smiling, those are just things. Like I said, the Super Simon Says events. There's not one particular that I could remember that's like this is the best one, but just
mhm,
coming back the third year in a row to the same place, hadn't even done it, and I just showed up and carrying my speaker through the parking lot, and all these kids ran to the fence, right, because it's a camp, so it's kind of like, and they ran to the fence and they're like, it's the Simon Says lady. Like the entire event was great, but what was most meaningful was that these kids remembered me and were so
mm,
excited that was there. Now, did someone say the Simon Says lady is coming later? Maybe, and that reminded them, but
mhm,
like just the enjoyableness of like them enjoying it. And one other thing that
sure.
I really loved is I've done some haunted events, like haunted
Mhm,
houses, where I was like in line. So like, you
mhm,
wait in a line, only to wait in another line, to wait in another line. It was a hayride I did for many years before I moved to the state, and then I came back. But I would do this event and they would get through a line, they go through this door and they think, oh, I'm finally at the hayride. Yeah, there's another line that takes about an hour to get through, but I was stationed in the other side of the door. So like
mhm,
I was an act and I was the fire performer that they would watch.
mm,
Um, and part of my job was to like heckle the crowd. Like
mm,
they were
mhm, mhm.
like, don't be horrible or rude to people, but like your job is to like it's a haunted house, like scare them, make them, feel weird and uncomfortable and like
Mess
I
with
don't want
them.
to make I don't want to make anyone feel like weird and uncomfortable, but yeah, they're like mess with them, right? So I just be like talking to people, just pull out some fire, eat it. They're like, what? Or like I would just do different stuff and like sneak up behind people and their friends would see it, right? But then part of
Mhm.
it is I would just make really bad jokes. As I said, I love making
Ah,
bad jokes. The punnier the better.
mhm.
And honestly, the one joke, and it's horrible to say, but at this haunted house, the one joke that killed it every time, and it's so bad. It's
That
so
killed
bad.
it at a haunted
It
house.
killed it. Yeah, that's the thing. I just can't even plan it. But this one joke that like, and my friends that were spinning fire with me were like, "Oh my god, please stop! Like, just please stop!" Right? I had a big sign that said "LB Spinners Arts" and come, join us, and like there was a tip jar, and like here's
Mhm,
info to find us online, and people and I'd wait for it. I'd wait for someone to say something. They're like, "Oh, what else do you do? Where can we find you?" And I would always say, and it's bad. I'm prefacing this right now. It's really bad. But I'd be like, "Oh, I do parties, I do parades, I do bar and bat mitzvahs, do wedding, backyard gatherings, funerals. People are dying to go." And every time it's like with like clockwork, I would say my friends are rolling. I could hear them rolling their eyes behind me.
Mhm.
And I would say like people are dying to go to the funeral and everyone would just burst out laughing like it was the funniest thing they'd heard in their entire life. And that joke, I still do it sometimes and people are like, it's a bad joke. It's like in bad taste. It's not really great, but like every time I did that for years and I would do the same joke. Like you'd have
Mhm.
people would come back. They're like, tell the funeral joke. I'm like, you literally just ruined my joke. Like they're like, I remember, tell it again. I'm like, it's not really that funny. It's just I do weddings and bar mitzvahs and parties and funerals and people are dying to go. And it's just like and for me the laughter that people get and being able to like joke with people because I can't do that at some of my shows. Like I joke a
Mhm.
little bit, but I that was very fun because I was less like they're like create a character and be who you want to be. And some of the other acts I do when I dress as a character, it's kind of like, all right, here's an idea. Now turn it into something. And
Yeah.
not everyone can do that. Like the elf I was talking about, they're like, hey, I think you might go there and sing. I don't know. They want an elf for a special needs adult party.
Mhm.
I had no idea. And I know other people, I told them, I said, they made me do karaoke. They're like, were you prepared? And I was like, no, not at all. Like,
Yeah.
you
A
know,
lot of other
and
people would not be able to do that. Yeah.
right. And I just try to be flexible. I try to work with it. You know, I did whisper to the staff that like hired me, and I was like, I don't think I know all the songs. They're like, fake it. They're having a great time. And so when I didn't know the words, I would just dance and I would turn around, I'd do a little wiggle, you
There you
know, and
go.
then I'd be like, you know, back to the song, right? And you just make it work. And I think just whenever people smile, I one of the things I do, and I say this all the time, is all my jobs for my business, not some of the jobs I've worked in the past, because I've run a bunch of things and been manager, but of all the things I do, the performing, the team building, the education, you know, all the different stuff I do, everything I do. I'm also a consultant, makeup and skincare consultant. Everything I do, it makes people smile. They wash
Mhm.
their face, they smile because they feel happy. They watch someone on stilts, they smile. Roller skates, they smile. Fire, maybe they're like, but at the end, they're smiling because they saw it, right? Super
Right.
Simon Says they got out, but now they're the judge. They were all upset, but now they're helping. They're smiling. Like
Right.
everything LED, maybe they're like, wow, that's so amazing, but you know, they're still smiling.
Hmm.
So like these are things that, you know, that's why I do it. I do it to make
Hmm.
people happy. If I was doing these things and people were like, this stinks and this is making me miserable, then like I definitely probably wouldn't do it anymore. But
That's
people
great.
are happy. So that's it's kind of like what makes it makes me happy and it makes them happy. And I love smiling and interacting and being positive, and team empowerment's all about like encouraging people. And you know,
Hmm.
that's my favorite thing about it. Just
That's
making
amazing.
people smile and happy, and it makes me happy. And not everyone gets to say that they do what they love for a living, and it's really special. And I'm very appreciative and grateful for being able to do this. Took a long
Yeah.
time to get to this point to only be a professional performer, but it's everything.
That's amazing. I love that. And you know what's funny is that yeah, I love that I can empathize with what you're saying just because when I was in my dating world before I got married, I had on my profile I own a smile factory. So
Oh, I love that.
that's what I did. All right, last question. I promise we've been
Sure.
talking all the time. Last
That's all
question.
right.
Looking forward to the remainder of this year, to next year, whatever it is, looking forward in the future. What are you most looking forward to?
Gosh, so many things. And I know you told me I have a charged phone, but my phone has actually been on so long. So I'm moving this for just a moment so I can plug my phone in. Forgive me for the change here. Gosh, I'm looking forward. I
Earthquake.
know. I get to see. It's like when you drop your phone, and I ask my friends if they're okay because I just dropped them on their head, and they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "I dropped the phone."
That's a good joke. I like that
Yeah,
one too.
yeah, yeah. All the good jokes. So I'll just move myself. There you go. You can still see me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, so looking forward, there's so many things. I have like a haunted fall Dracula thing that I'm doing again this year that I'm really
Hmm.
excited for. I always look forward to Wormtown. I have a big
Hmm.
fair at Wapping Fair that I do fire and bubbles, and I've done stilts in the past. Not sure. We're still coordinating what's happening. You know, just the end of the summer, I'm hoping for some more gigs. I don't know what you guys just sent me, but hopefully something else. And you
Probably.
know, just trying to use up my summer as best I can. And you know, I already have some holiday gigs. Someone already reached out about New Year's.
Hmm.
Um, you know, as I said, I act for and I signed an NDA, but I do a seasonal event where I'm a performer.
Hmm.
Um, and I get to sing and dance, and I'm good friends with Santa, and but I'm not an elf, and I love that, and that's something very special that I like doing, and it's only
Hmm.
seasonal. I don't know if I could do it all year long, although I love it, but that's really fun to sing and dance. That's I don't usually get paid to sing. That's like in the last few years. I can sing, but that was never something I was doing. So I
Hmm.
feel like that actually helped me with things. And in rehearsing for that, we do a lot of space work, which just beefs up my pantomiming skills, you
Hmm.
know, and I always try to learn something new. And just hopefully connecting with some people. I've had some other performers reach out saying, you know, they're looking for, you know, some events, asked me if I was available. So I'm, you know, hoping to make some more collaborations, getting that content that I'm not the best at uploading. I need a team like you do, Steve, to get everything online. You have some more bubble shows coming up. I have a big event with another agency at Foxwoods coming up again this year that I did last year. That was super, super fun, just fire breathing,
Hmm.
which is actually kind of fun. Um, to just do like one thing, and they put me in crazy costumes. Sometimes working for other companies, they put me in costumes, which is super fun. They're like, well, you could wear your own costume. I'm like, yeah, but I wear my costumes all the time. Like, yeah, you want to put me in a costume? I'm stoked. Let's do it. Like, so I do love getting, to do these different events, and just the places and the people you get to meet. I believe the Foxwoods one is like it's a liquor tasting or a rum tasting or something. But just like networking and meeting people, and sometimes I meet other circus performers like where I go, and I always bring flow toys with me, and I'm constantly like talking to people, and just again creating more spaces for the community. We have some new people I met in the last couple of weeks that are excited to come to Spin Jam, which is, I do not get paid for Spin Jam. I've been doing it for over 13 years, but it's a labor of love. I have a team that helps me when I have other gigs, but that's something I love doing. Multiple people are talking to me about bubble stuff, birthday parties. One thing I learned with bubbles recently is that birthday parties book at the last minute. Fire, stilts, roller skates. They're booking way in advance. Bubbles is, what are you doing tomorrow? Can you come to my event?
That happens,
yeah, it happens a lot. So, I mean, I don't know if there's any one specific thing. I'm going to Maryland to teach circus in a camp next week. So I'm looking forward to that. My sister lives in Maryland, so I'm actually going to get to stay with her, my niece and nephew, my brother-in-law. So that's something that if I wasn't, I mean, I could go visit them, but if I wasn't teaching circus down there, who knows if I'd get to spend the week with them. So things like that, you never know where you're going to go, who you're going to see. When I go to Long Island, I get to see my friends in Long Island. I go to Jersey, I get to see my friends in Jersey. I go to Massachusetts, I get to see my friends in Massachusetts. So some of that's fun too. I try to make a little trip out of it. Oh, already drove 3.5 hours up here. Who's around? Like, let's hang out. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
There's so much. It's hard to pick one thing.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's all awesome stuff. It sounds like you've got a lot coming up, which is amazing, and I'd still have some free time to fill in. So, ladies and gentlemen,
open for more things.
Yeah, absolutely, ladies and gentlemen. If you are still listening to this, if you enjoyed this conversation, make sure you share it with some friends. LB is available to do a plethora of different services and different things. Feel free to reach out to us. We are Magical Memories Entertainment. Once again, this is Magical Memories Unlocked, your guide to events success, and this is our deep dive to entertainer deep dive with LB. Once again, guys, if you guys enjoyed it, please make sure you share it with somebody, and we look forward to seeing you at the next event. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you so much, Steve, for having me.
Thanks for listening to Magical Memories Unlocked. This guide to event success is so helpful, some are shocked. Planning something big, we're here for you, with ideas and tips to make your vision come true. Magical Memories Entertainment is the team to make all your guests